Good morning, everyone. Good morning. We're going to call the meeting of the Board of Supervisors and the Board of Health and the Redevelopment Authority to order. Today is Thursday, May 19th, 2016. We're at the Community Center at the Sierra Room at 851 East William Street. Can we have a roll call, please, Sue, for the record, please?
Good morning. Supervisor Aboud? Here. Supervisor Bonkowski? Here. Supervisor Bagwell? Here. Supervisor Shirk? Mayor Kroll? Here. We have a quorum.
Thank you. I don't see the Rock and Rev here this morning, so why don't we just stand and have a moment of silence? And I understand there was an aircraft accident in the Mediterranean last night, so we'll just contemplate the world and ourselves. Would you come up and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, we'll now move to item number 5. This is the time for public comment. We also usually take public comment during agenda items, also at the end of meetings. Anybody on public comment? Anybody? Okay, I don't see any. As I said, we have as we go through the day. Let's take up 6, possible approval of the minutes of April 21st. Everybody had a chance to read those? Motion's in order.
I move to approve the minutes of April 21st, 2016 as presented.
Second.
Motion in a couple seconds. On the motion, discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. On the agenda, I've been told that the staff wants to pull 11B, which is the IT grant or contract. Any other matters from the board? I don't see any, so unless there's an objection, we will take the agenda as published with the exception of item 11B, which we'll pull for the next regularly scheduled meeting. Okay, can we have the board now go down, leave the dais, and let's go down and recognize some of our great employees. So come on down. All right, it's on. Tanya, good morning. Tanya Petri. Did I pronounce that correct?
Yes.
Ah, good. All right. On behalf of a grateful community, let us present this longevity award to you for 5 years of continuous service to your community in recognition and appreciation for your continuous and dedicated service to Carson City to making it a better place to live, work, and play. So on behalf of all of us on the board, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
All right, now I want you to come up here too. So, okay. All right. Who's this guy? Is Mr. Plummel here? Hello, Stanford. How you doing? Everybody know that he's a ball player at Stanford. You know, before he became, I think he still thinks he does that as a planning manager. But you know, okay. And Lee, this is in all serious, all kidding aside, on behalf of a grateful community, let us thank you for 15 years of continuous dedicated service to Carson City, for all that you do. You're involved in a lot of things in our community, and I know it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. And so, on behalf of all of us, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, come on up. Come on up. I don't know this guy either. There's something going wrong with the floodplain out here. Come on, Rob. Rob Fellows. How you doing?
Doing good.
Are we taking a lot of floodplain out so we get lower insurance rates?
We're making a difference. Yes, things are changing.
Well, make a big difference. We don't want to pay all those insurance rates. So
that's right.
All right.
Have a choice.
All right. At least that. Okay. Rob, this is presented to you for 15 years of continuous and dedicated service to Carson City, making Carson City a better place to live, work, play, and be flood-free.
Yes.
Okay,
All right,
thank you. All right, there you go. Thanks, Rob. All right. There are some others that were on the list today, but they will be next month, or next month. Okay, all right. Let's get a picture.
So any family members?
Any family members, come on up. Come on. Anybody? Okay, Shyla, this is the mayor. This is a mayor request. Up here, come on, Shyla, come on. All right, all right. Here. This is the entire board. See that? They're all right. All right. Anybody else want to come up and get a picture? You sure? All right.
Is it? Yeah, it's on. Okay, thank you.
We'll now move to item 8B. This is the presentation of the 2016 Historic Preservation Awards, and I know we've got Susan Dorr-Pansky here, Mike Drews, and the two of you are going to do it?
Yep.
Okay, go.
Yes, thank you for the record, Susan Pansky, Special Projects Planner. We are thrilled to be here today in conjunction with the Historic Preservation and Archaeological Awareness Month. We do these awards every year. We're doing the 2016 Historic Preservation Awards, and this year we have done it a little bit differently. We selected several individuals and an organization related to their efforts in restoring the Glenbrook locomotive. It was originally put into service in 1875 and then restored and completed in 2015. So there are several individuals that were part of that restoration team that are here today that we're going to recognize, as well as the museum itself. So we'll start. The first person is Chris DeWitt, supervisor in the Railroad Restoration Department with the Nevada State Railroad Museum.
There you go, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great job. Thanks. Not just the Glenbrook, but the Inyo and everything else you do over there.
Okay, and next we have, and Chris, actually, if you want to stay, we'll get a picture with everybody when we're done. Right. Yeah, that'd be great. The next person, Rick Stiver, restoration specialist with the Nevada State Railroad Museum.
Thanks, Rick.
And Mort Dolan, also restoration specialist, Nevada State Railroad Museum. Thank you. And Lee Hobold, retired now, but former restoration specialist with the Nevada State Railroad Museum.
Thank you.
And then finally, the Nevada State Railroad Museum themselves, and we're going to have Peter Barton come up and accept that award, and he's going to give us a little bit of information about this great restoration project.
Thank you, Susan, Mayor, members of the Board of Supervisors, and the public. I have spent 40 years of my life in the field of public history and in museums, and have come to learn that one of the highest and best purposes of museums are as incubators of memory. We stimulate memory, we recall memory, and we create new memory. We do that by using authentic objects, large and small, which become windows to illuminate stories of the past and of human engagement. The restoration of the Glenbrook fits clearly in that consideration set. It helps us understand the role of the Comstock and its incredible thirst for timber to fuel the furnaces that ran the pumps and ran the lifts and to build the mines themselves, with the impact being the virtual environmental destruction up at Lake Tahoe. We recognize the Duane Bliss family because they saved the locomotive from the scrapper in 1937, donated it to the state of Nevada, where it became the first railroad artifact in the State Museum collection. And the locomotive sat outside at the State Museum for about 40 years, where the public could climb in the cab and for a moment go to a different time and place, and then get a photograph of themselves, creating their own memories from a different time and place. And many of the folks who've gotten those photographs over that 40-year span have come back to the museum recently and said, here, would you like a copy of the photograph? This is my child in 1962 in the Glenbrook. And then the locomotive sat for almost 30 years at the Nevada State Museum while we searched for the resources to enable the restoration to go forward. And it was the late Senator William Raggio and the former Department of Cultural Affairs Chief Mike Fisher who got together with the E.L. Wiegand Foundation and convinced its board that this was a worthy investment. Wiegand stepped up. They were the exclusive funding partner that enabled the restoration, so we thank them for helping perpetuate this memory. And it was last year, of course, a year ago this week, which was the 140th anniversary of the locomotive's arrival in Carson City, that we celebrated its restoration and the work that these fine folks did, where the Glenbrook now joins its sister locomotive, the Inyo, also an 1875 steam locomotive built by the Baldwin Locomotive Works. And it gives us the ability to create new memories and really remember the glorious past of the Comstock era and the formative years of Nevada. So on behalf of the museum and the Department of Tourism and Cultural Affairs, I want to thank you all for this wonderful honor and invite you to come out next weekend on Memorial Day when the Glenbrook will be under steam. And you can come out and create your own memory with it. We're going to be operating it for the first time down to Wabusca Depot, which is another spectacular restoration that this team has done over time. Again, thank you. Come see us. Come make your own memories with the Glenbrook. Thank you.
Okay. All right, let's take up item 9. This is a matter that the sheriff and I are bringing on behalf of Partnership Carson City and NACO and others. As most of you, probably all of you know, Carson City has been on the forefront of dealing with measures to reduce the number of mental health patients who end up in our jail system as opposed to another form of treatment. I'm told by the sheriff that with our efforts to date, the mental health population in our jails has dropped by about 25%. What you have before you today is a resolution that the NACO, is the National Nevada Association of Counties, is asking us to sign on to. We are doing all the things I believe that this resolution says, but it's a demonstration of our commitment as a community to join our surrounding communities to address this issue, which is not just an issue of Carson City but elsewhere. And I'm also advised that many of our surrounding counties are looking to Carson City to look at our experiences to see what we've done that work and have worked. So that's what's going on here. If there are any questions, either the sheriff or I can answer. So, anybody in the public? Okay. And I think it's important enough where I think, this is one where, they're asking for all of us to sign. So unless there's an objection, any further discussion?
Resolution number?
2016 R5.
I move to adopt resolution number 2016 R5, a resolution to sign on to the call to action to reduce the number of people with mental illness in our county jail, commit to sharing lessons learned with other counties in our state and across the country, support a national initiative, and encourage all county officials, employees, and residents to participate in that initiative.
There's a motion and a second on the motion. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All opposed? Nay. Motion passes. Thank you very much. Sorry for the stumbling around there, folks. Okay. All right. When we sign that, Nick, we need to get that over to Partnership Carson City, and we'll Sheriff, you would help us do that, right? Okay. All right.
Will do.
All right. All right. Let's take up item 10. This is discussion on the partial removal and refund of real property taxes for the 2015-16 fiscal year for parcel number 007-601-01 in the amount of $126.54. Good morning, Kimberly. Anything you want to add to what's in the staff briefing memo?
No, Mayor, I don't have anything more to add.
I think there's a question. Oh, public comment? Anybody? Board? Motion's in order.
I move to approve the partial removal and refund of the real property taxes for the 2015-2016 fiscal year for parcel number 007-601-01.
Motion and a second on the motion. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Okay. Move to item number 11. Thank you, Kimberly, very much.
You're good.
Good job. All right. This is, Laura, you want to just take us through this one? This is Forensic Support Services Agreement. Go ahead.
Morning, Laura Tadman, Purchasing and Contracts. This is to approve the Forensic Support Service Agreement between the Washoe County Sheriff's Office and the Carson City Sheriff's Office. This is to perform forensic services for a not-to-exceed amount of $104,378 starting July 1 through fiscal year June 30th, 2017.
We have a couple questions up here that we'll see if we go ahead. Supervisor Abad.
I just have a question, Laura, because the motion says for a fee not to exceed, but the contract itself on page 49 under A says a fee of $104,378. Should it read not to exceed?
I'll let Kathy take that one.
Great, thank you.
Good morning. Yes, Karen, you're absolutely right. This is actually a single one-time payment of the $104,000.
Don't go anywhere, Kathy. So you already answered my question, but that was a similar question to Karen.
Yes.
On whether it's not to exceed or not, but then also there's additional services that we pay for separately. Can you walk us through that as well, please?
There are additional services that are associated with this contract because it's through Washoe County Sheriff's Office. And they're the items that are listed separately in the agreement. There are certain things that this base contract doesn't cover. For example, the big one would be DNA analysis. That's a separate fee. Toxicology services is a separate fee, and we're funded elsewhere for that. That's more of a supply item versus a contractual item.
Thank you, Kathy.
You're
And then just a note that the exhibit should be labeled Option B and not Exhibit B.
Good morning. I sent my questions in. I just want to verify why this contract in previous years, the amount when 14 was $79,000, 15 was $50,000, and 16 was $88,000. Why does it vary so much?
We're provided the amount for the fiscal year from a letter from Washoe County, and it's based on how much services they provided to us the previous year, and it's also based on their cost of doing business. One year, we did not go with a contract. We went with the time and materials. It didn't work, so we've decided to stick with the contract side of it.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Public comment? Motion's in order. Who wants to make a motion?
I'll do it.
All right.
I move to approve Forensic Support Services Agreement between Washoe County on behalf of Washoe County Sheriff's Office and Carson City on behalf of the Carson City Sheriff's Office, file number 1516-143, for a fee not to exceed $104,378 to be funded from the Professional Services Laboratory Expense Account with a correction to the attachment.
Second.
There's a motion and a second on the motion. Discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Laura. All right. We pulled item 11B. Let's move to item 12. This is the request to submit a grant application to SMIPLA for $102,389. Chief Shrehans, who you got with you here?
Hi, for the record, Chief Bob Shrehans, Fire Chief. This is Rod Rummel. He is our fuels management guy. So you probably haven't met him before. We're lucky to have him. He's comes well educated and well experienced, but currently he's one of our part-time guys. So if you want to give me some extra money, I'll make him a full-time guy today. So what we're doing today is we have two grants in front of you. The first one you have is for $102,389. That's our current trailer program. So what we do is under our WUI, which is the Wild Urban Interface, is that we have folks who are able to call in and request the trailers, and a lot of you guys have used them. City manager's done it. However, last year we didn't get the grant, so if you know, in this budget cycle we asked for additional funds for that. So because we're not grant funded anymore, we decided to go after the SIPLMA grant to carry this program forward without a big impact to the taxpayers. So that's what this one is for, and we'd like to continue that program and keep going forward. You guys have any questions?
So, thank you. So can you help again, tell me the difference from what we approved in the budget to do this trailer program, and if we don't get this grant, what's the effectiveness of what we did in the budget? I'm trying to understand the dynamics of both of these.
Right, so right now, before we were doing, it was paid for on a grant through NDF, right? Well, we didn't get that because of that, it was taken down. So what we did is we're using the part-time funding for that group, and we added the 10,000 to carry it forward for next year, right? So because this doesn't start until 2017, if we do get it, it's going to carry it forward for the year, and then we'll just carry it forward throughout the budget cycle, and we could probably reduce our budget by that 10,000 because we'll be doing it by grant again instead of by general fund.
But this is a different granting source that we're trying to go after.
Correct. It's a completely different grant.
Morning. A couple of things. This service is only provided within the wildland urban interface area, which is basically the west side of Carson, or is there?
Well, this particular grant is only for the folks on the west side, okay? We currently offer it east, okay? And it goes out to, southeast also in those areas. So any place that we have our wild urban interface, which is kind of all over the city. But that's what we're doing right now, currently with the program that we have. And the grant that we had was citywide. This one is just for the west side because under the SIPLMA rules, we can only do it on the Sierra front side of the city.
Right, that's just what I wanted to clarify. And there is all the trailers and everything, are these separate trailers that are used for this as for the other areas within Carson? Do they have specific trailers and dumpsters?
No, it's all going to be the same trailers that we currently have and all the same dumpsters that we have. It's just we'll be able to, when you sign up and depending on where you live, obviously when they call in and it's on this grant side, then we'll have a checklist that says where you live and we'll apply it to the grant.
And there's no matching portion for this grant, correct?
Any other questions from the board? Public comment? Anybody? I don't see any motions in order. Who wants to do it?
Megan.
All right.
I move to authorize Carson City to submit a grant application in the amount of $102,389 to the Southern Nevada Public Land Management Act through the Bureau of Land Management for the Carson City West Side Hazardous Fuels Collection Project.
Motion and a second on the motion. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Okay. While you're still there, let's take up item 12B. This is another SNPLA.
I know, it's hard to say, huh?
SNPLA grant, you know, in the amount of $1,999,900. I thought somewhere we missed $99.
I know, right? Well, we're going to hit $2 million, but we just want to leave it just a little bit under, right?
All right. Take us through this one.
Yeah. So this would be a great grant for us to receive because this will take care of a lot of our wild land urban interface issues, obviously on the west side. So we're trying to create larger field breaks. And to be able to do that, these grants work under a 6-year to 5 to 6 year types of periods. And this will take care of that for the next 6 years. And some of the questions you guys brought up before, it'll be we'll have a full-time position that's tied to the grant, and then secondarily, we'll have to go out and hire some fuels crews to do that. They'll be on a part-time basis, but they will go out and take care of all of the thinning of those particular areas. And in 943, roughly 1,000 acres, that's a lot of work to do to go out there and to clear that, and that's why it takes a lot of time. And the other thing, too, is a lot of it's related to our weather, so we do a lot of it in the winter months when we're clearing and if we're doing burn cycles, and then obviously in the summer, then we switch into fire protection, and we're trying to create those barriers within that effect of that area for the west side.
A lot of money. And the grant matching, any cost to the city?
You know, there isn't. We put in there that it's roughly $5,000 per year for $30,000, but that's just because we're using in-kind of our current crews that we have, and to help us with some points on the grants that we're actually putting in-kind.
Okay, Supervisor Bonkowski, sorry.
Good morning, Bob. One of my questions was the 943 acres, is that all public land, or is it a combination of public and private land?
You can answer that.
It is a combination of public and private. I didn't have a chance to work out the percentages, but we can get that to you.
I don't need the percentages, I just wanted to clarify that it's both. In paragraph 2A, there's a couple of typographical errors, which I believe you already corrected, so just to get that on the record. Can you just briefly go through the numbers? This program says that you intend to collect 700 tons of biomass over a 6-year period, but our previous numbers, you collected 400 tons just in 1 year. So can you walk through, are we doing a reduced program and that's why we're not collecting as much? Or is this just a conservative estimate? So can you kind of walk us through those numbers, please?
Excuse me. Yeah, it's a very conservative estimate. Last year in 2015, we delivered 140 trailers and 75 dumpsters to the eligible west side. This isn't a grant we wanted to overshoot with and have money left over, so we dialed those numbers back just a little bit, and the estimate was 100 trailers per year and 50 dumpsters. So they're very conservative numbers. I expect our actual collection to be a lot more than that.
So if that's the case, does that increase the cost of the program?
The grant will pay for 100 trailers and 50 dumpsters per year. If it's more than that, we just spend the money out quicker.
So we'll do the program until we run out of the grant money,
Correct.
even if that ends up being 3 years rather than 6 years.
Correct.
Okay. And I think that's it for me. Thank you, Red.
Thank you.
So this is another SNPLMA application, but is this in a different area so it won't compete with our open space grants, right? This is a different section of the SNPLMA?
It's a different section.
Okay. Just wanna
There's
make
the
sure.
wildland hazardous fuels mitigation, and then I can't remember what category, the open space. It's a different category, so they are not competing.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Public comment? Okay, who wants to make a motion? Go.
I move to authorize Carson City to submit a grant application in the amount of $1,999,900 to the Southern Nevada Public Land Management Act through the Bureau of Land Management for the Carson City West Side Hazardous Fuels Reduction Project.
Second.
It's a motion and a second on the motion. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Thank you very much. Thanks for going after the grants, too.
Thank you. Yeah, we should know probably in 6 months, I would hope. So, and this is an expedited system from what they did last year, so we should know here relatively quick. All right, thank you very much.
Very good. Thanks. All right, let's take up item 13. This is an open space matter to accept the Open Space Advisory Committee recommendation that we support a grant application to the Nevada Division of State Lands for watershed improvements at Golden Eagle Lane. Tell us who's going to take this, Mr. Wilkinson or Mr. Mulder?
We're going to let Rich Wilkinson take the lead on this, but basically we're asking the board to approve and allow the staff to apply for a grant with the Nevada Division of State Lands Question 1 program for work on the watershed improvements we brought forward to you in the past along Golden Eagle Lane for $40,000. We'll still have a shortfall in terms of what our project budget estimate is, but Rich will explain that. Will explain the grant to you as he goes along here.
It's Rich Wilkinson, Senior Natural Resource Specialist for Carson City Parks, Recreation, and Open Space. And as Roger mentioned, we're looking at a shortfall, and I wanted to kind of go back a little bit in history to discuss where the project started. We originally came to the Board of Supervisors January 7th, and at that time we were asking for your support of a recommendation that the Open Space Advisory Committee made to allow us to submit a grant to Carson Water Subconservancy District. That grant amount was $125,000, and we were going to match that grant with $25,000 out of the Quality of Life Open Space account. I presented to the CWSD Finance Committee, and we were awarded a partial award. Instead of $125,000, we were given $75,000. And the explanation I had at that time was that there were a significant amount of grants requested and not enough funding available. So that committee awarded, I believe, the bulk of the projects, but they reduced the amount quite a bit. So right away, we were faced with a $50,000 shortfall. Original engineers' cost estimates for the project at Golden Eagle are $150,000, and currently we have the $25,000 dedicated through open space, and the Carson Water Subconservancy funding in the amount of $75,000, and so that leaves us with a funding gap of $50,000. We would like to submit a grant to the Q1 program. This was brought to my attention by both Ed James, who's the general manager for Carson Water Subconservancy District, and Charlie Donahue, who's the administrator for the Nevada Division of State Lands. That program has not been active for the last several years because they quit selling bonds. These funds that are made available now are funds that could not be spent on past projects. And right now, they have $80,000 available, and their committee made a recommendation to award Carson City with half of those funds and Dayton Valley Conservation District with the other half. So that's how we got to where we were today. The project hasn't changed. It's for erosion control and watershed improvement work near Golden Eagle Lane. And we would like to submit this grant, even though we're still going to potentially have a shortfall of $10,000. I did bring a conceptual site plan, which is up on your screen now. And this is what we're hoping to do in that area. Right now, we have an incised channel. It's 500 feet long, and we would like to shape the bank, place riprap, and some gabions or check dams to help keep the sediment from coming down into the Carson River. With that, we would, at this time, like to go to bid on this project, even with the potential shortfall, because this is a project that we can do in phases. If the project does come in higher than we estimated, we would have to go back to the OSAC committee and then to the board for final approval, either to look for additional grant sources of funding or to ask for more funding out of the open space budget. So, any questions?
Hi, Rich. Having Supervisor Bonkowski and I had gone out there to view that area, what with the $10,000 shortfall, what is eliminated from the project as you see it?
With the $10,000 shortfall, I think we would probably have to remove our sediment basin at the bottom of the project. The reason we would take that portion out is we think the problem is more upstream or in the drainage. And we're hoping that with that work, we would take care of some of the issues that are occurring down below. The sediment basin is an additional step to separate the sediment and water into the Carson River. So there is the potential, if bids come in lower than we anticipate, that we can still get the entire project done.
Good morning, Rich. First, I need to disclose that I am a member of the Carson Water Sub-Conservancy Finance Committee, so I was a part of the committee that awarded the grants originally. And Rich, you're right, we had requests for almost twice the amount of funding that we actually had to allocate. So all projects got cut. In fact, that was the first question, as you remember at the meeting, is what can you cut out? Secondly, the question one money, there's $80,000 available now. Water Sub-Conservancy has only recommended 2 projects go forward for the $80,000. So if this board approves this today, then you're virtually guaranteed to get the money. It's not a competitive grant. So that's it. Thank you.
Good morning. Golden Eagle Lane is a private road, as you said to me, but the city open space is the legal owner of the property. So how does that tie together? The private road, but we're the legal owners of the property.
The way it is currently, Golden Eagle open space is the land that we're talking about. The private road, Golden Eagle Lane, extends all the way to Mexican Dam. And so essentially the management and maintenance of that road is done by all the residents back there. Since we are a legal landowner of property in the area, it's part of our responsibility to contribute to the maintenance of the project. And I know Ann Wallinger's been working with the residents back there to come up with a plan. Some of the property was conveyed in the land conveyance from BLM in 2015. So we're still in the middle of working with those folks on some of these issues in that area.
If the property owners back there decide that they will not give access to the city, does that create a problem for this private road, or what do we do? Is there any conflict of interest or anything?
No, it shouldn't. We have access up to Golden Eagle Lane to where we're doing this location now because the road, there's actually a potential trail access point there. So we still have public access to that point. There is property, Mexican Dam open space, which is a little bit further north where residents have placed a gate, and we're trying to work on access issues there.
So the property owners maintain that roadway themselves? Is that correct?
They do.
Okay, thank you.
So in both of the grant applications, that one to be submitted and the one that was awarded, if we can't complete the entire project because the funding isn't there? Is there any issues? I mean, are we obligated under the grant to complete it? So the applications both indicate that within the money awarded, I just want to make sure, again, that, great, the
Good.
project comes in at 200,000
Sure.
and we're on the hook for the difference. So you're able to scale, both grants allow the scaling of the project.
Correct. When we did our presentation and our scope of work in the grant language, we mentioned that we would do as much as we could with funding available.
Any other questions from the board? Public comment? Seeing none, who wants to make a motion?
I'll make it.
All right.
I move to accept the Open Space Advisory Committee recommendation for submittal of a grant application to the Nevada Division of State Lands, Question 1, Grant Program for Watershed Improvements in the Golden Eagle Lane area, and to allow the mayor to sign a letter of support.
Motion and a couple seconds on the motion. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Thank you. All right, now pursuant to the agenda, we're going to recess to the Board of Supervisors, so we'll be in recess until the call of the Chair of the Board of Health, which is about 10 minutes.
Good morning, one and all. We will call the Board of Health to order for May 19th, 2016. It is May 19th.
Member Furlong.
Here.
Member About.
Here.
Member Bonkowski.
Here.
Member Bagwell.
Here.
Member Shirk.
Here.
Vice Chair Kroll.
Here.
Chair Pentar.
Here.
Dr. Pentar, we have a quorum.
Thank you. All right. We have minutes to approve from March 17th.
Public comment.
Oh, public comment. Yes, public, let's hear it. Hearing none, we have minutes to approve from March 17th, 2016.
I move to approve the minutes of March 17th, 2016 for the Carson City Board of Health as presented.
Motion and second has been made. All in discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you very much. All right, 18A, proposal for, health officer's report. I guess that would be me. Let's see. All right, well, I do have a few things to mention. I'm not going to talk much about Zika. Nikki's going to include that in her report, but there is a little bit of interesting information about the Zika virus. I did want to mention, and the sheriff is aware also, the closure of the renal pain clinic that occurred about 2.5 weeks ago has resulted in some increase in services. Is that a fair thing to say? For those people who both illegally and legally needed pain medicines. However, I think that the service coordination really has been quite extraordinary, I think, in the area, that physicians were notified, law enforcement was notified, mental health, substance abuse. So everybody seems to be on the same boat. Do you have any comments about that?
No, I couldn't agree with you more. As soon as this began to go public and law enforcement started its actions, quite a bit of coordination was going on in the anticipated unintended consequences, shall we say?
Yes.
And everybody seems to have really stepped up to that challenge, and so I appreciate that.
Well, and there haven't been, to my knowledge, any big public emergencies that go with it. And the thing that has made me very pleased is that there's a very supportive environment being offered to people who are opioid addicted, with resources being found for them. I want to report a little bit on the sexual assault response team. That is humming along. I continue to be very proud of the services that our community offers and how well our services are coordinated. All of the agencies are beginning to use, as a preventive measure, safety cards, which I forgot to bring, but Karen knows about them. And these are little, about this size, cards that can be given out by anyone. And a safety card is a nationally recognized method of giving information to people who may be victims of domestic or sexual abuse in a discreet way. Thank you very much. This is a safety card, and all of our agencies are going to have them available. They're available at health providers, the sheriff's office, SIRS, the detectives are carrying some. The DA's office has some. So basically what they are is a discreet way of letting people know how to obtain services. The startling statistic is that 40% of women have had an unwanted sexual encounter, and at least 10% of men. And
Wow, it's 40%?
yes. And so now, not all of these have resulted in rapes, for example, but it's a pretty startling statistic. So people need to be aware of how they can obtain resources. And our team is working on that. Let's see. National Association of Local Boards of Health. You will receive a newsletter in your boxes pretty soon. The national conference is coming up in August. The mayor and I have gone to those in the past. Any of the member here are welcome to attend, and there'll be more information there. And that reminds me that we are planning to do another governance assessment. Some of you remember our little red, yellow, and green cards that we did a few years ago. We're going to do a somewhat different format, but the idea is that we're doing a self-assessment. How well are we as a Board of Health doing in a general and in some very specific ways? And that's planned for late summer, early fall. I want to talk a little bit about e-cigarettes. you are probably aware that there were some new federal regulations released last week, I believe it was, that basically put e-cigarettes on the same playing field as standard cigarettes regarding sale and distribution. Several studies have indicated that they are not working as their manufacturers said they would, in the sense of getting people off of nicotine products, that basically users are just switching poisons and don't quit at all. What scares me the most is their appeal among young people. And there is one study that indicated there's been a 1,300% increase in the past 5 years in use of e-cigarettes among young people. That's scary to me. So we're asking the board to support anti-tobacco and anti-nicotine efforts locally, so things like ordinances that restrict smoking in public places and signs up in parks and playgrounds, which we're doing. So we want to continue those efforts. Let's see, a little shout out from Nikki and I to Jim and Brad that we're going to do the Resource Advisory Group again. Keep you in that loop. And of course, we also encourage the board to consider additional funding for public health, but I didn't say that out loud, did I? No.
No, you didn't.
And let's see, last but not least, a special immunization clinic is going to be held this Saturday. At the end of the school year, it's to try to catch all those sixth graders that need to have their DTAP, their tetanus shot, their tetanus booster, which is required by law before they enter, before they're 11 actually, so 7th grade. But it's open to the public, so if there's anybody who needs catch-up on their vaccines, this Saturday is a good time to come in and get it. Any other questions or anything you wanted to add, Karen? Start?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So I think I heard you say that e-cigarettes were nationally put on the same level for use and sales. Is there anything in our regulations that need to be updated to include e-cigarettes? Is that something that we need to address, or it already does?
I don't, Adriana, are you aware that, are there any, in our city regulations, is there any mention of e-cigarettes at all?
I don't believe so. I can do a search though, but I don't think so.
But smoking, e-cigarette people sometimes don't consider e-cigarettes as smoking. And so the language may need a little bit of tweaking to include what we're talking about. But that's what I'm aware of.
And there's the Indoor Clean Act that covers that too.
Yeah, and then, so it'll be dealt with on a statewide basis as well, because again, sort of the generic term smoking can be interpreted in various ways. There's no smoke with any cigarette, is the fact of the matter, if you're going to get down to it. It's a vapor. It's a, so.
So, I mean, do we have to update any definitions or anything anywhere? Anyway, I'll just leave that out as a question.
Yeah. All right, let's see. Are you supposed to move to approve that? Let's see.
I'll move.
All right.
I move to accept the health officer's report with the feedback and direction given by the board incorporated into this motion, if any, which there was none. Thank you.
All right. We think there's a motion and a second on the floor. Other discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And we will now go on to the director's report. Ms. Nikki?
Hello, Nikki Aker, for the record, Director, Carson City Health and Human Services. First of all, I'd really like to thank Sheriff Furlong, the mayor, and the board for adopting the resolution this morning to sign on to the call of action to reduce the number of people with mental illness in our county jail and supporting the Stepping Up initiative. This is a very positive step in the right direction, so thank you. And next, I've got Mary Jane Ostrander here, and she's going to discuss some of the housing grants. And then she also is going to talk about a pilot program that we're working on and introduce you to a member of that team.
Good morning. For the record, Mary Jane Ostrander, Human Services Manager. And what I'm showing is just our grant awards for fiscal year 17. As you can see, we've gotten increases in our housing grants. The Shelter Plus Care grant went down slightly, primarily because we've been paying for our database out of the grant. And this year, we just lowered the grant amount, and the database has its own grant. So that's why the difference. And the reason why I wanted to bring this to your attention is because, well, one, we must be doing something right. We're getting the increases. However, what we're running into now is the lack of rentals, and it's becoming a huge problem. And our housing grants, of course, require a fair market value. The fair market value that's calculated through usually the housing authorities are usually running 2 years back. So if you put all that together, it is a problem. We're looking at alternative ways and different formulas that we'll be able to use, working with the housing authority on that. But I just kind of wanted to bring that to your attention.
Mary Jane, is what you're saying then, because Rural Housing Authority is running 2 years behind, that the amount they're approving is less than the actual rents today?
Yes, yeah, we still have a couple complexes that are right there. The waiting lists are longer because there aren't any vacancies. With all the manufacturers coming into town, the housing demand is getting higher. The other barrier we're running into is a lot of landlords are not wanting to do one-year leases, which is a HUD requirement as well. And this is a trend not only here in Carson City, but just, all of our surrounding counties also. So we'll be working closely with our coalitions and stuff like that to try to, figure this out. But it's not just the fair market rent values that we're not finding. People working are having a hard time finding any rentals. For each rental, there's usually about 30 applications, is what I understand. So your landlords are getting to choose who they rent to, which is good. I mean, you can't complain about that. But what they're running into is wanting clear credit reports, background reports, no evictions, and things like that. And when we're looking at rehousing homeless people, there are those issues. So we're really having to shuffle in our office to, okay, what are we going to do about this? So we're kind of even doing our intakes a little bit differently, where we might not be able to house you right now, but here's some steps that you need to take in the meantime. And part of that is immediately meeting with Financial Guidance Center. Let's see what's on your credit report. Is there anything that can be cleaned up before we send you to a landlord and things like that. It also gives us, the knowledge of what that person has and maybe have conversations more with the landlords on what can we do and things like that. So it's I'm not going to say it's impossible yet, but it's going to be more of a challenge.
Generally speaking, what type of housing do you recommend to those individuals, or do you seek? Is it across the board, everything from houses to apartments to hotels to motels, or where do you look?
We cannot, with our HUD grants, house somebody in a motel because it's not permanent housing. It's a transitional unit. So we can't do that with motels. We're looking at studio apartments, one-bedroom apartments primarily because it depends on the size. With families, you're looking at 2 or 3 bedrooms. Houses are acceptable if the rent's the right amount and things like that. So, and when I say that, a 1-bedroom is, and I should have brought those and I apologize, but it's under, I want to say $585 a month.
Which is the HUD allowance.
Which is the HUD allowance, plus that is supposed to include utilities. So it's...
But is it, I remember you saying that the average 1-bedroom rental rate right now, and this is across the board, was somewhere in the $700 to $800 range.
It's around $600, yeah. So, and the fair market rents when they came out this year were actually lower than the ones last year. So that's our challenge. But on a positive note, on our welfare set-aside funds, these are state trust funds that we receive, and our fiscal years is staying the same, $16,000. One of the things that we're going to earmark that for is for the apartments going in on Janelle Street, Richards Crossing, I think is the official name now. And what we have pledged to do is to be able to provide the security deposits out of our welfare set-aside. And the way I'm setting it up is kind of exciting, is I'm working with the Financial Guidance Center. And the Financial Guidance Center has had a program called Lending Circles all along, where people can be a part of a lending circle. And what they're doing is they're paying a no-interest loan. And in a lending circle, if you have a 10-month loan and 10 households, each of those households, let's say, puts in $100 every month, and one of those 10 months, each household gets that pot of money, is what a lending circle is briefly. So what I want to do with this is they would be awarded the security deposit, and as soon as they have income coming in, they need to start paying that back. We'll set it up through the Financial Guidance Center, and it could be, $25 a month, $50 a month, however. And if they do that for a 6-month period, the Financial Guidance Center can report that to the credit bureau, and it bumps up their credit score about 40 points. So, in the end, as soon as they get done paying that back and they graduate from the Richards Crossing program, let's say they graduate, they will be given back that money. So they're kind of paying themselves back, and then they can get that money back for a deposit on maybe their next place. We're not going to dictate what they do with that money, but hopefully that's kind of how it goes. So that's going to help some of these folks start rebuilding some credit, hopefully. So we're working all those nuts and bolts out, but we're kind of excited about that. So, and then moving on, I'd like to introduce Faith Barber. She is our community health worker, and we're kind of piloting this. We had some in our community services block grant. We were going to hire an intake worker, but instead of that, we are trying out a community health worker. And what the community health worker's goal is to really be the eyes and the ears of some folks that are going to the doctors. If I go to the doctor and I know it's going to be a serious doctor visit, I bring somebody with me to be that second set of ears, because you kind of shut down sometimes, and then you misinterpret and things like that. Well, that's what a lot of our housing folks run into. They're there by themselves. They don't remember what the doctor said. So a community health worker has that ability to go to the doctor's appointments with them, hear what the instructions are, help that person follow through with those instructions, whether it be testing, medications, exercise, diet, and things like that. So that's one of the primary roles of the community health worker, as well as just coordinating the transportation, making sure they get there and things like that. So we're pretty excited. She's been here for almost 2 weeks and has made a huge difference in just 2 people that she has already been to doctor's appointments with, and we're kind of like going, duh, so.
MJ, can you tell us what her expected caseload, or not what her caseload will be, but what the numbers of folks who might need this service out there are?
Well, we're looking at primarily our caseload with her, and we have, I think, about 20 people on our caseload. She's actively working with 5 of them, and Becca Bach with the MOST team has already, I have a couple referrals, and we're starting to get some outside referrals. What we have is part-time funding for her between now and the end of June. We did it through a contract, testing it out, and then we'll introduce it to our grantors and see if we can, continue the program and maybe even expand it. But, I would like to see her be able to do ride-alongs with EMS and maybe with the MOST team. And I mean, it can expand. It's a matter of funding.
And really the goal, I think, as you all understand, is these are often the folks who come in that high utilizer category, and they may not have encountered the justice system as often as some of our other high utilizers, but they need a lot of support, and we're trying to attack from the top so that they don't need the justice system. So I'm very pleased. I think this is a nice step for us.
And I think that's all I have. Thanks.
Okay, so we'll move on to clinical services. So I wanted to show you the number of children that were receiving immunizations at the clinic in Carson City. And what this is showing you in the blue, that's the total number of children that are eligible for vaccine for children vaccines. And to be eligible for those vaccines, it's birth to 18 years of age, and they have to meet at least one criteria. They need to be Medicaid eligible, uninsured, American Indian or Alaska Native, or underinsured. Now, with the underinsured, of course, with the ACA, we should see that diminish. And these are vaccines that we do receive from the state program. So we're able to give these vaccines to the children at no cost. So you can see we've stayed pretty level with that over the last 3 years.
Can I ask a question on that? So what percentage of our children are getting vaccinated? Can I go the other way? Are we hitting like 90% of all of the kids because of the laws for school?
I guess I'll answer. The state keeps a record, and I'd have to pull out the exact percentage, but what they do is they audit 2-year-olds, and last I remember it was in the 90% range, but I can get you exactly, of 2-year-olds are immunized up to date at that point. The next stage when vaccines are checked would be upon school entry, and they don't keep statistics as to how many kids are, but we know that in Carson City a significant number, and I want to say sometimes close to 20%, are not fully immunized at that school entry. Now, some of that is the parents say, oh, I didn't know they had to have their shots before they go to school, and they go to the doctor and they get the shots. But there's still
a lot of education.
Exactly. And I think it's also important that on that slide that 25% of the immunizations given are given to non-VFC children, which is essentially private pay. Many providers are no longer offering vaccines in their offices because the paperwork required is extensive and the cost is extraordinary. And so our public health system is being relied upon by, as you can see, a fairly significant amount of families to keep their kids immunized as well.
And I'd just like to note on that, Dr. Pintar's been working really hard with the school district to, at the beginning, when the child starts school, to get those immunizations up to date, where in the past it's been extended out. So she's been working very hard. And now I think next school year will be at the point that they'll be have to be up to date when they go into school. So
Is it helping with the clinic that we help fund at the school site itself? Are you able to be able to give vaccines there?
I will say a qualified yes. The school-located vaccine program started out initially as trying to get everybody their flu vaccine, which it does. And now what we are able to do is give some updates of the required vaccinations like tetanus and such. There are other recommended but not required vaccines that we don't bring into this school district. Other school districts do that, but it's been the choice of our school district to so far just the recommended. For example, meningitis vaccine is recommended for teenagers, and it protects them as teenagers but also as young adults. It's not required to go to high school, but it's recommended. So we're hoping for expansion of that, into expansion of the school-located vaccine program to cover more vaccines and to make it more convenient for parents. Sign the note, and then we'll give your child the shot and hear the yelling, and you don't have to.
And that's one of the reasons we have that special clinic on Saturday that Dr. Pintar noted, was for these individuals to come in and get those recommended along with the required. So, and again, that's this Saturday. So and I just wanted to go over a little bit what our role is with the Vaccines for Children, or the VFC, which you'll hear roll off our tongues pretty easily. We, like I showed, we provide the immunizations to the eligible children, and we also have an individual in our health department that goes out and does what we call AFEX compliance visits, and I'll explain more what AFEX is, but she goes out and audits the VFC eligible providers in our Tri-County region. So what AFEX is, so the A there, it's assessment of the immunization coverage of the public and private providers. And the F is the feedback. So this is a part of the incentive that is the I, is that instant feedback on how their facility is doing in comparison to state or national. And then the X is for exchange of information among providers. So, we're pleased to have someone in our facility going out and doing this. And in 2015, she conducted 15 VFC site visits and 30 additional contacts as follow-up site visits. And 4 pediatric AFIC assessments and visits were performed, and 4 follow-up visits for the same providers. And then we also conducted 6 adolescent AFEX assessments and visits. So, and now I'm going to give you some information about our maternal child health program. So in the first 3 quarters of this grant, we have evaluated 60 children through well child exams. And of those 60, so 20 were uninsured and referred to get Medicaid. We had 25 that were referred and assisted towards getting further services, because during the assessment they found that the child didn't meet the age-based recommendations or milestones. And then we assisted 53 towards identifying a primary care medical home. So, and also within this program, we've participated in the statewide coalition, Immunize Nevada, which I'm sure most of you have heard about. We have a member on the board of directors, that's Ronnie Gallus, our clinical services manager, and have done conference planning and outreach subcommittees. And also within this program and grant, participated in the Child Expo that was held at the Boys and Girls Club in March, and also represents Carson City Health and Human Services at the quarterly Maternal Child Health Advisory Board meeting. And this is a required meeting that at the state that she participates in.
Nikki, I think what's important to know is that the health department does not want to be the primary care provider. And this is basically catching people who don't otherwise have resources or don't know where to go. So these are essentially one-time visits that are provided to the family by some extraordinary nurses, because I know them all, and vaccines are caught up, and then they are in turn referred to primary care within the community. So I don't want there to be the perception that this is another primary care provider. It's not. It's really to provide services where people just simply don't know or haven't been able to access them themselves.
And within this grant, we're changing focuses coming up on the next grant year, because this grant is going more to a population base. And so we will, this next grant cycle will offer just a few slots for, well, baby checks, but then we're going to be piloting another program that's more population based.
What's the effect on the primary care providers? I think we have in Carson City. I mean, I've heard that they're going down. I mean, so the number. What's the effect of this on primary care providers, their workload? I mean, because I've been told that the number of primary care providers is declining over time. So are we, and one of the reasons, so the rest of them are getting, a lot of work that they have to do.
Yes.
So what's the effect on them, and how many do we have, and are we,
Numbers-wise,
how are we dealing with that?
Numbers-wise, I just looked at the latest figures were in the Nevada Rural Health Data Book that was published in 2015, end of middle of 2015, and it only reflected 2014. And to my recollection, there were 75 providers that were considered primary care who practiced within Carson City. Now, primary care encompasses internal medicine, which is adults-only medicine, pediatrics, which is essentially 21 and under medicine, as well as OBGYN, which is female only. So as well as family practice, which, depending on the family practitioner, can be from zero to whenever you die. Having said that, all the primary care doctors that I know have full panels. Their practices are full. So, and as a community, we have not been particularly successful in attracting new primary care physicians to our community. So you're right. The workload is full, and the number of providers has remained relatively stagnant.
And then you can see from this slide, I mean, there's a number that we're assisting to get Medicaid because those are individuals that may not have Medicaid. And again, it's, it's getting into those physicians. And then also, like on this slide, 53, we assisted to getting to that primary care person. So we're trying to get them out there, but like Dr. Pintar said, they've got full panels. So
Can I ask just a general question based kind of on what the mayor said? So as we continue to grow as a community, is there an issue that we may actually have shortages of doctors?
We do have a doctor shortage. We've been considered medically underserved for a number of years. Not necessarily in certain specialties, but in primary care for many years, for mental health as well. So I think we have been in the midst of a problem for a number of years. I've had many people say, I can't get my mom into a physician who accepts Medicare.
Does that mean they're getting their service by going to Reno? What I'm trying to get to is how are we getting services for people?
Well, I think there's a variety of things, and that this slide illustrates that there's a fair number of families who simply don't know how to access services, or haven't been successful in getting into services. The other thing I think is working in concert with private groups as well as with the hospital, making our community attractive to physicians to want to be here and stay here. For a number of years, and I need Ed to ask Ed Epperson, but for a number of years there was a physician recruitment committee, and I sat on that for a while. And its job was basically to try and get mostly primary care physicians here. I don't think that committee is active right now, but I could be mistaken.
Maybe that's just a future discussion at a health meeting. We can put that on an agenda or have them come talk to us about what we're going to do over the next 5 years to address that or something.
Okay, and just a little information about this maternal child health. It is a federal block grant, and what this is, we receive dollars to improve access to care and insurance coverage, ensure children and youth receive coordinated, ongoing, and comprehensive care within a medical home, so that's with a primary care physician, improve community immunization rates, and advance the health of reproductive age women and improve birth outcomes through the prevention of the use of alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs, and assessment and referral for depression and domestic violence, which leads me to my next slide. Down here at the second table here. So this shows the screenings that we have done, and it's for individual women between the age of 15 to 45. So screenings are done. Now, I do have a caveat with the alcohol screenings. So it's rated as a positive when they indicate that they have had any alcohol to drink. So when we're looking at a woman of childbearing years, we're assessing that alcohol intake and then providing education that if they're trying to get pregnant, that drinking alcohol is not a good idea and is not something that they want to do, because you really don't know exactly when you become pregnant. So that looks like a really high percentage of positive, but that means one drink. So, and then, of course, the tobacco, that's 25% are positive. That goes about, it's very close to the statistics that we've seen out there. Other drugs, 7% positive. Domestic violence, that's 1% that we saw positive. And depression, 7%. So when our nurses and our nurse practitioner, they get these positives, then they're providing education. So, and then moving on up to the first table up here, I just wanted to show you that we have ran some Facebook ads for maternal child health. And what the themes were back to school immunization, text for baby. That's where individuals can receive a text and the text will give them health information. And then immunization. So you can see the number of impressions that we got for each of those themes and the number of likes. Okay, now I'm going to bring up Dustin Booth, who's with our epidemiology program. I wanted to give all of you a Zika virus update. The reason I did it in this format is this is something that can change. And the information I would submit when this all was due could change drastically from today, so I wanted to make sure and give you the most up-to-date information that we have.
Good morning. For the record, Dustin Booth, Program Manager at Carson City Health and Human Services. Just wanted to briefly talk about Zika virus. It's in the news every day. In northern Nevada, we are not an area that would most likely sustain this vector in regards to the mosquito that spreads the Zika virus. However, it does mean that we won't see travel-associated cases in northern Nevada. In the state, we've had 56 people tested so far, and of those 56 people tested, we've had 6 cases. All of them, once again, travel-associated. This map doesn't show it, but other maps show that in southern Nevada that there's a potential for that mosquito to establish itself there. So southern Nevada is obviously very diligent, doing surveillance, trying to find that mosquito, and then putting in efforts if they were to find that mosquito there. We have a mosquito program here in Carson City, along with our partners in the north in Washoe County and also Douglas County. So we do routine surveillance on a regular basis, looking for all types of mosquitoes, and then also utilizing the state animal disease lab to look for virus in those mosquitoes. Any questions?
And in Carson City, we've had 3 tested. Mm-hmm. Yes.
So some other epidemiological activities that we've been doing. Here's a chart in regards to an outbreak that we investigated at a large child care facility on April April 26th, we were notified in regards to a possible outbreak of chickenpox at a daycare, which was quite alarming because this is, chickenpox is a vaccine-preventable disease. Working with the daycare, we were able to establish the exact number of people in the outbreak and in regards to the time frame of that. What ended up happening after our investigation, that it was actually hand, foot, mouth, another rash illness that could be potentially mistaken for chickenpox, but is quite different. So 10 children were diagnosed with that, and then once we knew the diagnosis, we gave recommendations for environmental cleaning and also exclusion of children. And since we basically we've identified it, no additional cases have been told to us.
And I think it's important to note here that with our epidemiology program, it's a tri-county program, and this investigation actually was in a preschool that was outside of Carson City. But what is important here is we can see this disease here. It's in Washoe County right now. It definitely can come here. So, and we see it this time of year. So, but just so you know that this program is a tri-county.
This virus doesn't try to kill you like chickenpox virus does, though.
No,
so we
no.
Get us excited.
And then here's an epi curve of another investigation that we did in April. Once again, as a regional outbreak investigation. On April 8th, we were notified of some sick individuals that attended a business luncheon. There were 2 businesses in regards to this luncheon. It wasn't wasn't 2 large businesses. There were only 6 ill individuals. There was nothing confirmed. All individuals ate sandwiches from a party tray. With partnering with our state environmental health, who does the inspections in Lyon County, their environmental health follow-up of this establishment found some temperature violations and also hand washing violations, which is a possibility of what could have led to this very rapid onset of illness. There's certain bacteria that can be spread from bare hand contact and improper temperature control that can cause, after you eat the first one was about 2 hours after eating, they started becoming ill. So, since then, so it was very isolated that we did not see any other community members. So most likely it was linked to this party tray that one business bought for another business, and the 2 businesses shared that. Nobody was hospitalized, and we haven't had any other cases since. And then on the environmental health side, just wanted to talk a bit about one of our staff members in Carson City Environmental Health that was selected for a fellowship. This is Brendan Gibb. He was one of 9 individuals selected for this fellowship. It was the International Food Protection Training Institute's 2015 Fellowship in Applied Science Law and Policy. The program consisted of both guided lessons, which were done by experts and leaders in the field of food safety, as well as a research project. Brendan attended several week-long sessions for education throughout the last year, and then at the end of those sessions, he came up with a research project. His project was selected by his peers and instructors as being one of the most influential and widespread effect on the industry, and was selected as one of 2 speakers to present at the conference's General Assembly, which will be in June of this year. So Brendan's project was food safety risks due to quat binding, which occurs when quaternary ammonia is used with a cotton cloth to sanitize surfaces.
Brendan, tell the mayor what you were.
For the record, I said I didn't understand a word you just said.
All right, so for the record, my name is Brendan Gibb. So the project that I did, going around in the facilities here in town, I noticed an issue. A lot of the facilities use quaternary ammonium. It's one of the sanitizers that's approved besides bleach and iodine. So one of the issues we found was the Sani buckets that most places set up, they use a cloth towel. That's the preferred method that most places are using. So quaternary ammonium is inherently positively charged. It works by interacting with bacteria and viruses on food contact surfaces, which are negatively charged. So they bind together, it gets deactivated, gets washed away, and there's nothing to worry about. So the problem that we run into is that these cloth towels, if they're cotton or viscous, if they're plant-based materials, they're inherently negatively surface charged. So they have a negative surface charge on them. So in a lot of our facilities, in those Sani buckets, people will test the bucket. They'll use what are called sanitizer test strips to make sure that it's at a concentration that is adequate for pathogen destruction or inactivation. And it could be at a good level. The problem then that happens is they take the cloth, they put it in there, the cloth reacts with it. If you were to take that same cloth and squeeze it out onto a test strip after that, a lot of the active component in that quaternary ammonium stays in that towel. So that's a problem that is fairly widespread in the industry at this point in time.
Are you clear now, Bob?
I didn't understand anything.
New way to sanitize.
Okay, so what you're saying is we have to have different towels that are check the towel, or is that wrong?
Different way to sanitize.
Or different way to
So there's several different ways to combat this. So people at the USDA right now are formulating new types of quaternary ammonium. They're putting salts in it, which kind of competes with the quaternary ammonium active component that we need to have more of on a surface, but the problem is that's, years away. So at this point in time, the ways to deal with that is use a spray bottle to apply it onto a surface. There's different types of towels that you can get. The more synthetic it is, the more polyester-based it is, the less of this binding that occurs. Other than that, you can just keep soaking the towel over and over and put it back into the solution. So in Carson City, 61% of facilities use this quaternary ammonium. In Douglas, there was 75% of facilities use this quaternary ammonium that we're talking about, and only 6 facilities out of all the ones that were in this study knew of this problem. So it's shining a light on an issue that seems to be fairly widespread in the industry.
It's shining the light and then providing education to the individuals.
Good job, Red.
So we're pretty excited that he's going through this fellowship. It just increases the quality of the inspections and the education that goes out to our food establishments. So thank you. Okay, so for public health preparedness, I just want to highlight a couple things here. That we're going out to a senior independent living facility and providing education on how to stay healthy. It's going to be a 3-part series, and the first session was on social isolation. Also, we're finalizing the regional isolation and quarantine plan with Washoe County Health District. And then hopefully, once that gets finalized, we can bring it here and start talking about how we move forward here in Carson City. We're also at the 5th Annual Rural Preparedness Summit in Fallon, which is in June. They're doing some flu pod or point of distribution or dispensing training. So those are like the pods that we did, the free flu shots. We're providing education on how others can set those up. And we're doing what we call train the trainer. So for the rural counties, training them how to do it. So in the case of if something happens, they can set up their own, because we're going to be busy here in Carson City doing our own. And then I also want to highlight that we're finalizing the regional medical search plan, and this is a plan that if something hits our area, it's going to impact a lot of different services, and it won't impact just Carson City, but will impact surrounding areas. So what is our plan for that? And so we're finalizing that.
And Nikki, I neglected to mention, but Karen Allen in our department and myself have been on the state Crisis Standards of Care Committee, which ties into this. So basically, if something big happens, how are we all going to react? And it's been interesting to me, but there's been relatively little attention paid to people who are outside of the big metro areas. And so I think having Karen involved in that on a statewide committee has been very helpful. And then I've tried to put my 2 cents worth in.
Nikki, at our last meeting, we heard from Public Works that in case of an emergency like you're talking about, that we may not be prepared from a fuel standpoint for emergency service vehicles. Is the scope of what you're talking about now, is that broad enough that you are incorporating into that program something like the vehicles to deliver services and the fuel for those, or is it just the actual medical services? I'm just wondering if this is an opportunity. You know, it's great if we'd have this awesome program in place to handle an emergency and then we had no fuel to get vehicles out there.
And actually, the Crisis Standards of Care is looking at, they're looking at things like if telephone poles get knocked down, do we have enough utility workers to put them back up? So I believe that under that level, but again, that's sort of a state level, and then it trickles down from there. Really what the Crisis Standards of Care is, there's sort of this board that will convene and decide, is this a crisis, and if so, where are we going to send necessary fuel, necessary personnel, things like that. And then the medical surge plan is for a more isolated type of instance. So you have to do it from both directions.
And Nikki, if I may, or unless you want to answer that, I'm sorry.
I was just going to note that, you know, what we're looking at here is more the health aspect, and then rely on those other plans. Because it's huge. It's huge, and we've got to figure out the health aspect of it.
And then just going back to, how did you select the senior independent living facility? How was that selection made? And how many are there in Carson City?
Do you know, Angela, how she? I'll let Angela, she oversees this program, so.
For the record, Angela Barosto for Public Health Preparedness. Karen Allen does outreach in the community, and through the outreach that she did with senior flu, the facility actually contacted her, and they worked this out together to come and do this. And I believe independent living is slightly different than the long-term care or the skilled nursing. So these are like the facility down on the end of Long Street there that's next to the lodge. That's a senior independent living facility. So I believe there's like 5, but I'm not exactly sure. I'd have to look that up for you.
Well, I'm just wondering if you could contact those other senior citizen independent living and tell them what you're doing and invite them to at least attend this meeting that you're holding. You know, the staff could attend this and learn as well.
I agree. Karen does a lot of outreach individually with the facilities. Like yesterday, she actually did a training at one of those other facilities. They ask her to come, like she does them either based on like what's activities they can do physical to stay healthy. She'll give them on preparedness planning. We have a form that we give them that's for personal preparedness, so that even though they're in a facility, it's some things that they need to have available if a first responder came or the facility had to be evacuated. But we are certainly open to having them participate in a lot of the trainings. We have found, though, it's difficult to get the manager of those types of facilities to come to like a public meeting or a healthcare type of coalition that we're trying to arrange right now, just because they don't have any backfill and they don't have backup. And so we found it's better for us to go to them, and that's what we're trying to do, a little bit more individual work with them.
Mm-hmm. And definitely when we have a program that we see is successful and has positive outcomes, then, you know, Karen, she's good about letting others know about what's available, and we'll, you know, communicate that to them.
Angela, do you want to mention a little bit about the progress of the Healthcare Coalition, since I forgot to?
Actually, Dr. Mentor, you've made the biggest progress. So we are trying to put together here in Carson City something that we've been working on with Douglas County, which is basically sort of a community-based healthcare coalition that includes not only the hospitals and long-term care, but also hospice care, mental health, suicide prevention. These are all the people that participate in Douglas County. We have Care Flight.
But also, a coalition of public and private healthcare providers to improve preparedness is a big goal of it. But it's simply to look at one another and say, oh, what services do you deliver? And I mentioned this a little bit more, but we're planning on our first meeting, to which you will all be invited at the end of July 28th.
Correct. And it's basically the idea that everybody knows who each other is and then what resources are available in the community, and maybe even identify some gaps and be able to try to address some of those.
Okay, now moving on to our chronic disease prevention and health promotion division. So over spring break, I think I have talked about this before, we reached out and we had an abstinence-only program. We did have 3 participants that registered and completed it. And trying to reach out to other programs within the city to get this program initiated. We're working with the Carson City Library right now, which I think came as a suggestion from one of the Board of Health meetings, so thank you. And other regional activities, we've got a program, the Be Proud, Be Responsible program going up in Virginia City, and a third of the 10th grade class completed that program. We're also working with China Springs and Aurora Pines Youth Camp to bring that program into their facilities over the summer. And then working with an elementary school up in Virginia City for the abstinence only for 5th grade. And we're going to have about 25 kids completing that program. So,
can I ask a question? At our START meeting, was brought up the fact that we're having problems getting education out there in terms of dating violence and sex ed and that sort of thing. And I'm just wondering what efforts are going forward to kind of coordinate with Advocates to End Domestic Violence and Ronnie to get into the schools to promote that.
I can let, you know, we've been trying some different avenues. We do have difficulty getting into the school here. Ronnie can speak some more to it, and so can Valerie, so.
Yeah, for the record, Ronnie Gallus, Clinical Services Manager. Yeah, in that meeting, it, you know, when you finally bring the community together and you sit down and you recognize that, you know, we say, oh, we can't get into the schools, but we can't get in the schools, but we realize that there's probably 20 of us trying to get in the schools with our particular agenda or need, and recognizing the burden that that probably presents to our school district. And so it was, you know, sort of an eye-opening recognition for us that we realized some of us were in certain niches in the schools, some of us are in for some things, providing some education. And so after that meeting, we actually, advocates and I sat down and basically were like, okay, what are you doing? What's the minimum of amount of time you need? What are we doing? What's the minimum amount of time we need? And then, you know, can we coordinate this? And who else is making requests of the school, and are these themes or topics that we can kind of bridge and bring together so that you know, so that it's a win-win for both the schools and for us. So it's really at very beginning, it was sort of, we spent 30 minutes after the SART meeting going, oh my gosh, how did we not think of that before this? But the good news is we are thinking of that. So
thank you, Ronnie.
Mm-hmm.
For the record, Valerie Clape, Carson City Health and Human Services and a HEP program coordinator. Because we implement evidence-based interventions, we are very limited as to what we can and cannot add in or subtract from our curriculums themselves. So we've been trying to do some problem solving on this, because this is something that a lot of our partner organizations have also been requesting. And hey, can you please add in some more information about healthy relationships or intimate partner violence, et cetera. So one of our staff members in our program, who the other part of her job is she actually works in the clinics for Ronnie, I've put her in charge of kind of coordinating between the two different programs and divisions and kind of helping to also coordinate how that might work with our programs when we go in and see if there's some way that, for example, next time we go up to Virginia City and Story County, if there's some way that we can also bring in maybe somebody from advocates to kind of come alongside us as well. We may have the opportunity to do some of those kind of more pilot-y type projects in Story County, but then we can kind of see how that works together and try to implement that in Carson City as well where possible.
That's good news. Thank you.
Wait, can I just ask a general question? This one is also a grant, and these are requirements of the grant. But my question is, should we keep doing this grant if we can't get participation? I mean, it's... Yeah, I mean, I'm just asking it in general, why keep going if we only get 3 people or 4 people?
I know that that's something that Nikki has struggled with. The
value of it.
The value. The need is there. The need is there, but sometimes you point people to what they need and they're not able. They, for whatever reason, don't access it. So no, I know that Nikki and Valerie are speaking like, is it worth it? Is it worth?
Keep going.
Yeah,
Should we
exactly.
keep accepting this grant? And it's just, I think it's something we need to address or look at.
Okay, also within this division is the Safe Routes to School. So Bike to School Day, we got 14 schools taking part regionally, and that was the highest number so far. And then you see a picture of the trailer here. You may see that running around town. 6 schools have scheduled to receive bicycle safety instruction, and this trailer will go out. It's full of bikes and tools and helmets, and Courtney will give out helmets to kids that don't have them. So, and this is a regional program. So when you see this trailer running around, that's what's happening. And then our tobacco program, we continue to survey multi-unit complexes to see if tenants are interested in smoke-free policy. We continue the efforts with Western Nevada College on the task force for a tobacco-free campus. Just recently, Sandy went up and did a poster presentation to a PowerPoint to a policy group up there about the environmental impact of tobacco waste, and she brought qualitative and quantitative data. They went and they cleaned up the campus one day, and they picked up 2,257 butts. Yes, they did count them, which glad I didn't have to be part of that, but and this was even after they did a cleanup for the spring. So, and an important thing to note here also is a lot of this, the cigarette butts that were picked up, they were in a high-risk fire area. So she also just here last week did a poster presentation about this topic up at WNC. So she continues to work with WNC on that. And she also has went into Carson High, the health classes, and talked about tobacco prevention related to nicotine addiction and other tobacco products. So with new data with it's called the YRBS, the Youth Risk Behavioral Survey, they found that 27% of youth are using electronic products. So, we're seeing that rise, as Dr. Pintar indicated, and we are pretty excited that the FDA finalized that rule, extending its authority to all tobacco products, including the e-cigarettes, hookah, like Dr. Pintar mentioned. So. And I just want to take a minute and show you some recognitions that we received. This is from the Immunize Nevada. And they get nominations for different practices or different individuals that make a difference with immunizations. And Karen Allen, which Angela spoke of, she won the Platinum Syringe Award. And then Sandy Wartgo, who is the individual that's on our tobacco program and went up to WNC, she got the award, the Silver Syringe Award for the Outstanding Adolescent Immunization Program. So I just wanted to share that information. Yeah. And then I think that's, oops. That's it, but I just wanted to take a minute and let you know
where's the slide on being recognized for being accredited?
Wait, I'm getting there. You're as excited as we are.
Oh, well, I didn't jump ahead.
So we're awaiting that decision. They had a meeting on the 17th. We were on that agenda. And we are sitting on pins and needles waiting for that decision. We did get an email that said we should hear soon. So, so yes, we're excited to hear that too. We did receive our report, and we were excited the way the report came out. So some very positive information, and so we'll let you know just as soon as we can.
Upside the head if we share any information before the official announcement. So we don't like to be slapped upside the head.
So maybe they know that they need to just kind of hold us off a little bit, but yes, we're extremely anxious to hear, so.
Other comments or questions from Ms. Nikki? So I will entertain a motion.
I move to accept the director's report with feedback and direction given by the board to staff on CCHHS Activities Incorporated.
Second. Motion and second has been made. Other discussion? All in favor of the question? Aye. Aye. Those opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. And our last item of business will be delivered by Ms. Quape, talking about our next community health needs assessment.
For the record, Valerie Quape, Carson City Health and Human Services. So I'm going to keep this quick and cheerful. What we've been doing is we have two different community health needs assessment processes going on right now. We've been kind of piloting some of our processes as we have taken our lessons learned from our previous community health needs assessment that was published in 2012. And we've improved upon some things, and since we've been through our accreditation process, seen where we maybe needed to beef up some areas or maybe not worry so much about some others. And we are implementing a community health needs assessment in Douglas County in conjunction with Carson Valley Medical Center, and then also up here in Carson City with Carson Tahoe Health. Carson Valley Medical Center's timelines were a little bit tighter and moved up a little bit more, which allowed us a perfect opportunity to practice a little bit and kind of garner some more lessons learned before we start to implement some of our in-person assessment processes up here. We completed the local public health system performance assessment instrument in Douglas County. I believe it was on the 12th was our last day. And so we are looking into scheduling the assessments for Carson City in late June and early July. We have some tentative dates scheduled out, but now we're going to be looking at how we want to format that. Previously in our assessment completed in 2012 or published in 2012, the assessment itself was completed in 2010, 2011. We had two very long days where we had all of our community members come and sit, and some of you may have been present for that, where they had the popsicle sticks that were multiple colors voting on the different measures. We're doing things a little bit differently this time. First of all, we're using it's a program called Turning Point, where everybody gets a clicker, which also really, we found, expedites the process because voting is not only anonymous, but also it's expedited. It's there, and then it's also up there on the chart, and everybody can see how we as a group scored how we're performing as a system, which includes all of the organizations in healthcare and public health and community organizations and nonprofit as a whole, right there on the screen. What we did in Douglas County is we paired some of the different essential services. You may have remembered from previous conversations or trainings that there's the 10 essential services of public health, which align with the first 10 domains of public health accreditation as well. And so we paired a lot of those domains together and tried to kind of target our invitation list to the groups that would be most interested in those areas. So we're playing a little bit with how we want to pair that now. If we want to keep everything coupled the way that we did in Douglas County, we want to move things around. A lot of it comes down to time and availability of our partner organizations, but we would also really appreciate any attendance on the part of members of our Board of Health. You have a role or you have the ability to kind of see things from a global perspective as Board of Health members. That is always valuable when you're able to participate in these meetings. So please look forward to those invitations, and we will keep you posted. The Carson Tahoe Health, their phone survey is the one that they're doing to garner input from the public. So the in-person meetings are for representatives of partner organizations, and then they're doing a phone survey to get information from the public as a whole. And then we also have a staff member who is actually a disease investigator who's been collecting a long list of data regarding the Nevada Core Health Indicators, and I want to say the whole thing's like 40 pages long. So we have what the public thinks the major public health issues are, what our partner organizations see as the major public health issues and our gaps, and then we have the hard quantitative data, and we can contrast all three together. So the data component is done, it's being formatted, the phone survey is done or nearing completion, and then the partner meetings again will be late June, early July. Towards the end of the summer, we're going to be asking everybody to come back for a Forces of Change assessment. This is the fourth of the 4 MAP assessments, and MAP stands for Mobilizing for Action Through Planning and Partnership. It's a nationally recognized planning tool for community health assessments and resulting in community health improvement plans. That comes highly recognized by the National Association of City and County Health Officials, and also is even mentioned within the Public Health Accreditation Board materials that they expect us to meet. This 4th assessment will take the information from the 3 previous assessments and allow us to reconvene and look at what's coming down the pipe in the future and start to plan for those. So it's really not only just an assessment, but also the beginning stages of the next community health improvement planning cycle. So it kind of seamlessly transitions from one to the other. And that should again be happening sometime late summer, early fall, which is another time when we will be doing, as Dr. Pintar mentioned previously, the governance assessment, which is just for the Carson City Board of Health. Okay, that was a lot of information.
And this public survey that Valerie spoke of that Carson Tahoe is wrapping up, we will have the opportunity to hear how that survey went and what the results were. We're looking at bringing that to the July meeting, have a short, very short presentation for you all from their contractor that's doing it so that you all will be aware of what the results of that survey were. And that's part of our partnership with them. They need to get that information back out to the public.
Questions for Ms. Valerie? No. All right, I will entertain comment from the public, right? Discussion only, I can do that. Come on, public. Nothing, all right, fine. Who wants to adjourn? Aye. Okay, thank you.
We'll be in recess for about 10 minutes here, then we'll get started board and redevelopment.
Yeah, what he says.
What he says, all right, all right. Supervisors back to order. We just got through with Health and Human Services agenda items. Now we're going to take up we're starting on item 22. This is a report to accept the report on the condition of each fund in the treasurer. Has everybody had a chance to look at it? Does anybody want to have Nancy come on up? Members of the public, anybody? All right, then we'll take a motions in order.
Okay, I move to accept the report on the condition of each fund in the Treasury and the statements of receipts and expenditures through May 6, 2016 per NRS 251.030 and NRS 354.290.
Motion in a couple seconds on the motion. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Let's take up 22B. And Nancy, I think you should come up on this one, please. There you are. Man.
You're good.
Hey, look at that. Think ahead.
This is my spot.
Take us through the ad valorem tax rate for the cooperative extension. Thank you.
Nancy Paulson, Chief Financial Officer. This is the action to adopt a resolution setting the ad valorem tax rate for the county cooperative extension for FY 2017 at 1.28 cents per $100 of assessed valuation. By law, the Board of Supervisors must set the tax rate for the co-op extension annually in an amount between 1 cent and 5 cents per $100 of assessed valuation to provide the annual funding for agricultural extension work.
Board questions. This looks like we do it this rate all the time, most of the time. Board questions? Public comment? Anybody? Motion's in order if we want to do this.
7?
2016 R6.
6. Okay. I move to adopt resolution number 2016 R6, a resolution setting the ad valorem tax rate for county cooperative extension for fiscal year 2017 at 1.28 cents per $100 of assessed valuation.
Second.
Motion in a couple seconds on the motion. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Okay, let's take up 22C, and at this time we will open the public hearing on the issue to approve or not approve the Carson City final budget for fiscal year 2017. Ms. Paulson, you want to take us through where we are on this matter so we can get it going and have a open hearing?
Okay, at the public hearing, we're required to indicate any changes that were made from the tentative budget to the final budget. I first wanted to just point out, I don't really want to start with an error that we found, but there was a typo on the page 1 of the document that goes to the Department of Taxation. We still had the year fiscal 16 in it. It's been changed to fiscal 17. So the changes that were made from the tentative to the final, we increased in the general fund, we increased the beginning fund balance to account for the estimated increase in C-tax revenues from fiscal 16. Originally, we had estimated a 7% increase over the prior year, and we moved that to an 8.4% increase. We reduced the fiscal 16 contingency from $500,000 to $400,000, and we allocated a portion of this, approximately $61,000, to the library for retiree payoffs that we discovered after we had done the tentative budget.
Nancy, that's 450, right? Not 400. For the contingency. It went from 500 to 450.
This is in 16. And then 17 it went down a little bit, yeah. And then in fiscal 17, we increased the C-tax revenue by $335,000. We added supplemental requests approved at the May 5th board meeting in the amount of $235,963. We reduced the contingency by $50,000 from $500,000 to $450,000. And then we added a $630,000 transfer to the capital projects fund for the projects approved at the May 5th meeting. Then also down to the capital projects fund, we added the $630,000 transfer from the general fund and allocated the approved capital request to the appropriate accounts. In the co-op extension, the tentative budget reflected a very low ending fund balance, so we reduced budgeted expenses in fiscal 16 and 17 to reflect an ending fund balance of $20,000. In the transit fund, we eliminated the fuel facility project and moved the $50,000 to services and supplies. Then in the street maintenance fund, we eliminated the truck barn and the fuel facility projects and added $200,000 to street repair. In fleet, sewer, and the water funds, we also eliminated the fuel facility project. And in the stormwater drainage and sewer funds, we just made some slight adjustments to the principal and interest line items based on updated state revolving fund information. And then the only other change that we made, this was to the 5-year capital improvement program, and that was to transfer the fiscal year 17 fuel facility project amounts that were not approved and move those over to fiscal 18 in the capital improvement plan. And that's all that I had.
Okay, that's where we are on the budget. Looks like, to me, like you picked up all the matters that we discussed on at the prior meeting. Board comments or questions of Nancy? Anybody?
Regarding the fuel station, I guess you can call it, why was that, if it was turned down by the board, why did we move the funding to 2018?
There was additional funds in the capital improvement program in fiscal 18, and that's what we normally do. Is we still want to keep the project on there as a wish list project, but it's not necessarily funded. That would happen during the fiscal 18 budget process.
Okay, but the departments have agreed to set that money aside for the fuel station, essentially? Or where are we at with that?
So the capital improvement, so nothing's budgeted for the fuel facility in fiscal 17. The capital improvement program is just a listing of the various capital improvements. Yeah, wish list. And so it still stays on the capital improvement program, but it's not funded unless approved by the board during, future budget meetings, future years.
And then I just wanted to make a general comment. A few meetings back, I had asked for information on our professional services and dues and things, and I just really, for the record, wanted to let the public know that this board and this budget has savings of $73,552. So those are just, for the record, a change that we made in case people wanted to know. So it's just for the record.
And just one more comment to put on the record. Of the billable property tax in Carson City based on assessed value, 18% is being abated and going into abatement accounts for the general fund, and 28% in the redevelopment districts. So the reason I want to put that on the record is because it helps, I think, the public understand some of our budgetary issues when we have revenue that's out there that we plan on that we don't have access to because of what the legislature has done with their funding formulas. And I think that we're going to see that addressed in this upcoming session, but that it puts a pretty big hole in our budget from our revenue standpoint.
Okay, any other board comments? And I'll go to the public right now.
I do have a question. Yeah.
Go.
I did alert staff and the city manager and the mayor that I did have questions for certain departments, and it was mostly on the breakdown expenses for RTC streets. I'd like to start with that one and then move to Parks and Recs. I think they got to come forward.
Who do you want first?
I don't know. I was told by Darren that staff would be here to answer questions. So who that is, I have no idea.
Okay, well, let's.
Well, hey, Patrick.
Come on up.
Why don't you come on up? David, Danny.
And this goes back to the original meeting which I had with staff over the breakdown of expenses for RTC street and maintenance since the year 2005 to the year 2015. And in particular, I was going to talk about line item 15, which you're aware of, which we discussed in that meeting, and that's at $14,774,83. And how that is broken down to, and my question was the breakdown of each line item listed in that, I would just like to have the public be aware of how this is broken down. If you can give some indication of how much is spent on each item in that line item 15.
Patrick Pittenger, Transportation Manager, Carson City Public Works. For the record, the Supervisor Shirk is not discussing the budget that is before us today. The line item 15 that he is speaking of is actually from a breakdown of expenditures, total expenditures from the RTC and streets funds from fiscal years 2005 through 2015, not about the current budget. What he's referring to are expenses for salaries and benefits during that 11-year previous period for primarily streets employees, the folks that are out there working our streets on a daily basis. As we have informed Supervisor Shirk, and actually Supervisor Bagwell came to that meeting as well, we have provided a breakdown.
Hang on a second, do I have the DA's
Yes,
got a light on here?
Mayor, I just want to caution you to not go beyond what is stated on the agenda for this item, because this is not agendized to talk about prior budget years, just to caution you.
All right, caution noted, try and do your best to stay current with what the public hearing is about today.
Okay.
This budget.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, District Attorney's Office. Then regarding, similarly to previous budgets, the current budget that is before us does have an amount of funding in the streets budget primarily for salaries and benefits, and those are for the salaries and benefits of streets employees, approximately 18 employees. And what we have shared previously that applies to both previous budgets and the current budget is that those employees fill numerous roles in the city, and the work tasks that those employees fulfill include everything from basic street repair like crack filling, pothole filling, patching, street sweeping, snow plowing, emergency response, tree trimming, maintenance of signs. We have over 7,000 signs in the city. The maintenance of traffic signals, construction of sidewalks, maintenance of shoulders, and also doing striping, like crosswalk striping, for example. As has previously been shared with Supervisor Shirk, those tasks will also be undertaken in the next fiscal year as well. And while we do have a breakdown, while we do have a cost for salaries and benefits in this budget that's before you today, there is not a specific breakdown for each of those tasks that I previously listed.
And the reason, and I did clarify and I did say 2005 to 2015 when I asked for this to come forward. No one clarified that we couldn't talk about this, but I'll talk about this year's budget. So you have 18 employees, and how much funding is in that line item for those 18 employees?
Let's see. I'm looking at the streets budget. Under expenditures, highways and streets, salaries and wages, the total is $1,413,409.
And is there a reason you cannot break this down to what salaries go for crack filling, for street repair, and snow removal?
Yes, as previously discussed, the reasoning is that these employees, because we don't have sufficient staff to have dedicated staff for each of these tasks, the employees, almost to a person, are all fulfilling multiple duties under this heading. An example would be someone that is on a concrete crew normally could be plowing snow one day, same with a tree crew or somebody else. There is a lot of flexibility required in order to respond to emergencies and the demands as we go forward.
I got to tell you, I find it incredibly hard that we cannot keep track of time to how much money is spent on snow plowing versus street repair. I can't believe that a budget of $1,400,000, we can't keep track of how much we spend on crack filling, street repair, snow removal, or a street sweeper. We don't have it in our means to do that.
Well, to answer your question, while this line item isn't specifically broken out, we do have the ability, after the completion of, for example, a winter season, to account for how much money we spent for snow plowing. And we also have other measures, for example, for crack filling. This board has previously, for example, awarded a contract that allows us to purchase the material used for crack filling. So we do have a tracking of that material that does measure the amount of crack filling that was completed. That just doesn't measure the salary cost associated with that activity.
I still disagree with the process that we're doing this for tracking for the taxpayers, how much money we're spending on each line item. I can't believe we cannot break that down. If we're going to go that we have X amount of gallons for street repair or patching, however you want to qualify that, you buy a gallon of paint and you have 10 people use that on a square footage of a wall, everyone has different square footage. So that's a terrible way of tracking. I believe we're entitled to know how much money is spent on each line item. And if we're not capable of doing that, I would ask you to get with some department, IT or whatever, to set up a tracking mechanism so we can know how our taxpayers' dollars are being spent. That's my personal opinion.
Okay, we're not going to argue about it. I got the opinion, okay?
And can you tell us how much money is being spent in each ward on street repairs?
No, we cannot, because we do not track it that way, nor have we ever intended to do so.
And why can't we start doing that?
Because the ward, and this has been discussed at a previous meeting as well, so I will try to briefly respond that the ward boundaries do not pertain directly to the alignments of streets. If we have a street that needs to be repaired from point A to point B, we have no intention to stop at a ward boundary. And many of the projects that we do are on a citywide basis and are done based on the conditions of the streets and the needs of the facilities.
Yes, they're based on the needs of the streets and the condition of the street. I get that. You can separate a street that is in 2 wards. That's easy to do. You gave me a map last time of all the streets that need repair. All you have to do is overlay to this, and you can figure out. I mean, it is pretty simple to look at a street, and I can't believe that we can't do this, that you can't look at a street and say, this part or point A, you know how many lineal feet or how many square feet is on that street, and it's easy to break it apart to Ward 3 or Ward 4. And to not do that is misleading, I believe, in my opinion, it is misleading, and it is easy and comparable to do. In my opinion, we can do this. And if staff doesn't want to do that, I think it's letting down the public. We're spending X amount of dollars on street repair. Everyone's complaining about it. You just have a new commission come in to look at street repairs, and you're asking for volunteers to come in. This is information that we need to give them. I don't think anything will change. I think the process as we're going forward will never change at this juncture, and I think it's wrong. I think it's sad, and I think we can improve how we do business within the city. If we're going to be open, as it says, open to the public, well, this is information that the public has been requesting. I'm not requesting it only. Other people want to know exactly how much money is being spent of their tax dollars in their ward where they live. I think it's easy and it's trackable, and we can do this. As I said, I don't think anything will change, but I'm going to voice the opinion of many citizens within this community that are dissatisfied with how we're doing this. I know your hands are tied. I know you're limited, but we can make improvements, and being open and transparent starts here, I believe.
Okay.
Just a comment.
You ready, Jim, you want, I mean, we got other people want to speak. Are you done asking questions, or you want to continue? It's up to you.
Well, I may check back in.
Okay, all right. So, comments or?
So no, just a general comment concerning the budget and street activity, kind of along with Mr. Shirk's comments is it that you anticipate that this data would mean we would budget differently? That we would change the authorizations? I'm trying to get to the heart. If we want staff to do more work or to take a different tactic to display the budget, what's the overall goal that we hope to accomplish to help us in the future with the budget? Maybe that would, why should they undertake this task? Is it just for transparency of where the money goes, or you think it will actually help us budget?
In respect to, or in response to your question, there is no per se guidelines. So what I'm asking for is a change of those guidelines. Would that allow us to look at the street repair in a different perspective? Possibly. Can it change anything? Possibly. Is there a future if we take a different road, ironically, road? Yes, we can. We can improve what we're doing. Does it mean that we spend more money over in Ward 4 or Ward 3? Not necessarily, but at least we have an indication of what we're doing and how we're doing it and where the money's going. We could have a winter which takes $1.2 million for snow removal, and we're not tracking it. And then everyone complains about the roads being in bad conditions. Well, if we know how we're tracking and spending our money, and we know we spent $1.2 million on snow removal, well, that only leaves $200,000 for street repair, and we can say, there's no money, there's no funding, because we spent it on snow removal, or we spent it on the street sweepers, or whatever. But we're not tracking how the money's being spent. I think it's a necessity to track how taxpayers' money is being spent and not lump it together in this quandary of not knowing. And it's not going to cost that much money to track the money.
Had the same kind of thought process, Lori. I'm not sure exactly what the goal is to spend additional staff time trying to break down the wages. My understanding, what I heard, was that we can track the expenses for everything except for the wages. We can't break that out per project, and we don't break it out by ward. But I guess at the end of the day, if we did want to change, this would be a policy decision by the board. It certainly wouldn't be a decision that would be made by the department heads. So I'm not sure that chastising department heads is the way to go here. We should be chastising ourselves if we wanted to make that kind of a policy decision.
But I don't think I was chastising anybody. All I'm doing is bringing up topics. If you interpret it as chastising, that's your opinion. That's wrong, and I'll tell you, I'm just bringing up the budget as I look at it and looking for answers. I think I'm entitled to it. If this is a board policy, so be it. But I also think staff can look at this and realistically say, hey, this is easy to track. We can do this, or it's unrealistic. I don't think it's that difficult. It really is. You have 18 employees. To track 18 employees, if it takes an hour a week, that's 52 man-hours in a year. I think it's easily done.
Okay, additional questions? Anybody? Okay, gentlemen. And ladies, sorry.
Seat feels pretty hot. You ought to be sitting in this one. Roger, before we start, make sure we are qualified to talk about this in the agenda item as it's being breached, I guess, is the best way of saying it. So you want to qualify what we're going to talk about and make sure it's in the agenda itself?
I think maybe that's a good place to start. And for the record, Roger Mullendorf, Parks and Recreation Director. I've been asked to put together a report that tries to analyze the actual amount of money that has been spent by the city to support sports activities in Carson City. Now, the information I have is using the past 3 years' budgets. And because I don't have information on the current year, nor information on the proposed budget the current year we don't have, because of course the budget year is not completed yet. So
how does it affect this budget then?
Exactly.
It really doesn't affect the proposed budget directly.
You got to help me then, Adriana.
This can be a sideline conversation with regard to the information that is being sought of the department. I don't think it's appropriate under this item because it's not related to this budget. It's not affecting this year's budget. So that's something that could happen, a conversation on outside of the meeting.
All right, that's the ruling then. I'll follow the DA's advice. Okay.
Right. How much money is in this line item on the budget today?
Well, I don't have the budget with me. I know that Nancy has our budget with, she has it with her. Typically, again, it's a little bit complicated, somewhat like Public Works, because the services that are provided to sport activities in Carson City cover 5 different budget units. And not all of those budget units are 100% towards the support of those to provide that kind of support. Just kind of looking at the report that I gave you, the estimate would probably be about.
That's the estimate for this year, for this budget?
It'd be, well, actually, no, this is.
I'm not certain what the question is. I mean, he's asking you what was in the line item.
Yeah.
What line item are we talking about?
And we don't have a single line item. That's what I'm trying to do.
He asked a question, and maybe just to clarify, so we get the record's not all muddied up here. What line item are we talking about so that Nancy or you can answer the line item?
I'll clarify.
Okay, go.
In this year's budget, 2016, how much funding is in expenditures, revenue for the youth and adult sports in Carson City? Am I saying that correctly now?
Well, I think there's 2 line items there at least, but.
So the expenditures for the sports department are $370,592. The revenue, I don't think we have it broken out in the state document, but I can try to look it up real quick. Well, it's not going to be real quick. I want to say it's around 190,000.
I think that's pretty close. And I'd like to interject that is just one of the line items that provides support for sports activities, and that is the line item that provides support for our in-house programs. It doesn't include the support we provide for other organizations.
And I think basically what I was leading up to is that we, in your previous numbers that you gave me, we broke it apart to how many per participant we spent. And that was $81. And my main goal was to see how we can improve that dollar funding amount. And that's what I was trying to do at this budget hearing, is bring it to this board's attention, what money is being spent, and how we're spending it, and how we need to improve on that, because this involves the youth, mostly the youth in our community, and we're not, in my opinion, not spending enough. And I was looking for how we can improve that.
I just found the sports revenue, and it's actually budgeted for $290,000. I think I was thinking of the year-to-date number.
Okay.
So to kind of follow up on that, and to follow up on the number that Nancy gave you, the $290,000 out of that budget really reflects covering our direct cost for providing those activities to the youth and adults in our community through our programs. Now, the other question you asked, how can we improve upon that, or how can we spend more money or provide maybe additional services, maybe it's a better way of putting it. Again, that's kind of a policy decision by the board. If you feel that we're providing adequate services, then there may not be a need for a change. If you feel like the services could be improved or increased, then that would be a policy decision by the board, and quite frankly, that would somehow relate back to revenues and additional resources for the department to do so.
And Roger, just one of the additional questions, moving to a different topic. The ice rink that we had is in the budget. we have X amount of dollars set aside, but we have not had a presentation from the previous year, or am I getting that confused with something else?
Yeah, I think we brought a presentation to you on the ice skating rink.
On that skating rink, we have, I think it was 22,000 or 25,000, I can't remember, I can look it up, but it's one of the two numbers set aside. Does that dollar amount include any improvements we have to make, such as the skates themselves and all the other equipment, or is that just to operate it?
That is just the operation of the ice skating rink. Now, we're going to be looking at the equipment we have is old and it's aging, and it's experiencing some wear and tear. We're going to have to be looking at, in future budget years, some capital expenses to improve to replace some of that equipment.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Unless there are no further board questions at this time, I'm going to open it up for the public. This is a public hearing on the budget. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Mayor, Supervisors. John Barrett for the record. First of all, let me comment sort of off what I came up to talk about and surprise all of you by saying I don't disagree with Mr. Shirk. As a matter of fact, I kind of disagree with the attorney. She's an attorney, I'm not, so I defer to her judgment. But as far as I'm concerned, this budget is built on the backs of every budget for the last many years, including the years that Mr. Shirk mentioned. And that's because this board does not do zero-based budgeting or ask the city department heads and the city manager to do zero-based budgeting. I don't think you can do zero-based budgeting. I have talked with Supervisor Bagwell about it, and she said you can't do it all, and I agree. But on a cyclical basis, kind of like the streets are fixed currently, you can do it for a few departments. Perhaps the two departments that Mr. Shirk's referenced today would be good ones to start with, and I think that's something you should consider going forward. But she's a lawyer, I'm not, so I'm sure she's technically correct. Because you don't do zero-based budgeting, there is no way to get into the weeds with this the way Supervisor Shirk asked. But what I'm up here to talk about today is what I talked about 2 weeks ago. I don't think the priorities in this budget are as I would have them. I think the streets do need to be fixed. I'm very adamant about this, and I want to cite a couple of things that I referenced a couple of weeks ago. Particularly, I have here a construction spending projection based on recent activity.
I know you're looking close down to the speaker to the microphone.
I'll do that, sir. March constructing spending was released today. Spending is up 9.1% year-to-date versus 2015. And there's a reference here that you can click on. Year-to-date gains are led by non-residential building up 11.2%, followed by non-building infrastructure up 8.6%, and residential up 7.5%. This is why deferred maintenance in the streets must be done, because it goes up faster than inflation. Inflation is low currently, but as I referenced 2 weeks ago, inflation, cost of money, is going to go up. Yesterday, the Fed signaled from their April, I believe it was April meeting minutes, that they intend, or probably will, if the economy is still healthy, raise the federal funds rate in June. When the cost of money goes up, the cost of money goes up. The prime rate will go up when the federal funds rate goes up. It'll only be incremental, a little bit small, but this is the beginning of reflation. We have to pay more every year we delay in paying for our streets and our other deferred maintenance. So I'm here to stress that the priorities aren't correct. I know you probably can't go back and change those priorities, which is why 2 weeks ago I asked that you consider doing a resolution that in the sales tax arena, and I do recognize that your ending fund balance or reserve encompasses all your taxes, but that in the sales tax, any month that it is above what you now say would be 8.3%, that you dedicate that to deferred maintenance. I'll answer any questions.
So I think, John, that every November, December, when we look at the augmentation, augmentation processes and assess where the sales tax is going to, the estimates are really coming in against the budget, we certainly have that opportunity that you're discussing to put those dollars to deferred maintenance. And so I don't have an issue, and I'm saying that that's certainly where I'm going, is to put dollars, as I did last time, put the $370,000 of the excess sales tax dollars into the streets. So.
Yes, the board did do that, yes, and I commend you for that. It's not a lot, but it's a Band-Aid, as I think some other supervisors.
The whole road, if you looked at it.
That's right.
On some of the roads that we
That's
have
right.
listed for this upcoming one.
Well, obliquely, as I referenced 2 weeks ago, even $721 would be helpful, but not much. I agree with you that that's the way to go, but what I'm asking you to do is go on record. The people are really disturbed about the street situation, and not just the streets, if they knew about the deferred maintenance. When you're going up 10%, let's just take the ballpark of what Ed Zarensky is the name of the construction estimator who made that projection, based on what data for the past year is. In another reference from the same gentleman, I found that he thinks the 3-year period that we're in right now at the end of has gone up quite a bit. So it's actually started long since. We're in a recovery, and we sure hope we stay in a recovery. But the truth of the matter is that that recovery is going to make it cost more to fix anything. We have billions of dollars invested in this city if you take commercial and public sector combined. The public sector has to take care of its part, as well as encourage the private sector to do the same. And it doesn't make any sense to take 150 years of building a city from a few hundred people to 55,000 and just let it fray at the edges. Those are metaphors, but I think you all know what I mean. Any other questions?
I just have one intellectual question, maybe, and if I'm catching you off guard, you'll let me know. Would you prefer zero-based budgeting or performance-based budgeting if you had your choice?
I think you have to do both if you can.
How do you do both?
Well, performance-based budgeting is what you're getting for your money, but zero-based budgeting is starting from ground one. You do performance-based budgeting for everything. You do zero-based budgeting on a cyclical basis for departments that you think need that kind of stricter analysis. When you start from the ground up, rather than just building on the past budget, which was my reference to why I think this budget actually is more, it goes back into the past, then you have a problem if you don't do zero-based budgeting, at least on a cyclical basis. If you don't start from the ground up, you'll never say, oh, here's a program we can probably do without. Here's an expenditure we can probably do without. I've seen it done before in other states and in other towns. It's very difficult. There's no doubt about it. What Supervisor Shirk is asking is the questions that you need to ask in that kind of process, which takes a whole year. I do disagree with his reference to how much it takes when you're relatively speaking understaffed from what you were 10 years ago, because that takes up a lot of time when people could be doing something else that is a direct service to the community. But zero-based budgeting was a buzzword 20 years ago, but it really is the best way to do your own home budget, if you know what I'm saying. You got to start in each year and say, what can we do without? I don't think government does that enough. I think government needs to do it going forward, because there's always going to be people clamoring at the door for more. There's no doubt about that.
So, John, if we were to put more money towards street maintenance, where would you take it from? What would you cut?
Well, I'd love to go where you would like it to go, and that's get it from the gas tax. The problem is, of course, the federal government has raised the tax in what I would call forever. It wasn't that long, but so, yeah, it's been a long time. Yeah, roughly speaking. And the cars are more fuel efficient, millennials are driving less. There's a lot of reasons that the money isn't coming in. But the truth of the matter is, you're taking, what, I think I heard 21 miles of streets or 11 miles of streets from the state over time, and that's more maintenance that you have to do on top of the maintenance been deferred. And I think you have to go to general fund money and find another priority to, that's less. That's all you guys do. It's a decision-making process. You have to say, this is important, this is less important, this is even less important. You have to figure it out, and that's why I said 2 weeks ago, you deserve your raises because it's a tough task. There's no doubt about it. It takes a lot of research. A lot of research. But to ask the department heads and some of their underlings to do this when they've got alligators on their desks right now in terms of zero-based budgeting at the end of the year, at the hearing for the next year, just doesn't work. You got to take the whole year and look at it line by line on a particular department. And the departments will, rise to the level of, we were going to do Parks and Rec this year, but gee, we find out, we need to do Public Works. I'm just using those two examples because you've been talking about them today. But that's the way you go. I know no politician, no government official likes to take general fund money from one pot and put it into another pot. But this 10% roughly, when the inflation factor right now is 2%, tells me something's got to give. Any other questions? Thank you.
So, John, I just want to comment. I think that this board is beginning some of the process that you discussed because we as a board did ask on the record. We had alternative sentencing come several meetings ago in the budget process early because I think we as a board here have recognized that we need detailed information line by line. So we did do that. And I don't really recommend that we take on a whole department because I just think the labor intensive, we're just not going to get a gain there. But what I do recommend is that we look to the future budgeting process is we take a small unit within a department and examine it for its zero-based budgeting. So maybe one is an example today, we were talking about the wildlands. So maybe we could have the fire department really break down a unit of service that's provided, and we look line by line. So I think there are some opportunities for us, and I think that this board's been trying to address that method, and I think over the next year you'll see we begin to pick specific units to review.
I don't disagree with that. I think you've done a pretty good job of moving in the right direction with performance-based. I'd add, I do think you can do a department. It perhaps would cost some money. What Supervisor Shirk is suggesting would take some people, more people, to analyze that. The finance department is only a few people. The city manager doesn't have a deputy, and each department is stretched at different times. So if you all were willing to step up and spend more money for more staff, you could probably do department by department. Right now, it would be difficult. I recognize that, and your comment isn't without merit. I've been sitting here for 4 years watching you, and I think you are moving in the right direction. But at the same time, the issue of transparency, you've moved to more transparent government thanks to your new city manager. I think that's good, but the one thing I would agree with is that transparency is very, very important. So I would hope that all of you would step up and spend more money if that's what you want to do the kind of budgeting that needs to be done. If you're going to cut, one thing to pay for another thing, in this case roads or deferred maintenance, you're going to have to know what you want to cut. And the problem with building budgets, the way we've built them in the past in government, has always been, oh, there's such a constituency for this, we can't let it go, even though it might not be as well done as you would like, nor as needed as it used to be. I don't want to give a specific here because I'm not going to single anybody out. But spending money is very important, and it is tax money.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks. Other public comment? Anybody? Okay, I don't see anybody, so now's the time. We're going to decide whether we want to pass this budget. It looks like they picked up everything that we've talked about on May 5th, so let's, motions in order on a budget if we want to do that.
I move to approve the Carson City final budget for fiscal year 2017.
Motion and a second. Motion by Supervisor Binkowski, second by Supervisor Shirk on the motion. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Okay. Thank you. Let's now take up a recess of the Board of Supervisors. And huh?
We're every board today.
Yeah, and turn the gavel over to the Chair of Redevelopment. Oh, and while I do that, for the record, we're closing the public hearing on the budget, okay?
All right, I'd like to call to order the Redevelopment Authority and let the record reflect that we have a quorum and open up for public comment. Seeing none, I'd like to open the public hearing on the Carson City Redevelopment Authority final budget for fiscal year 2017. Nancy, are you going to take us through this?
Yes, so this is to approve the Carson City Redevelopment Authority final budget for fiscal 17. The only change in this budget from the tentative to the final was the reduction in services and supplies by $14,140, as the library will be purchasing the books and periodicals that were previously in the RDA budget, and that was approved in a supplemental request at the May 5th meeting. And that was the only change.
Thank you, Nancy. Any board comment? Any public comment? Seeing none, I will close this public hearing of the Redevelopment Authority fiscal year budget, and we do need a motion on this.
I'll make it.
Okay.
I move to approve the Carson City Redevelopment Authority final budget for fiscal year 2017.
Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item number 27, another public comment. Seeing none, do we have a motion to adjourn as the Redevelopment Authority? A second. We're adjourned as the Redevelopment Authority, and I'll turn the gavel over to the mayor, and we'll reconvene as the Board of Supervisors.
All right, we'll call a meeting of the Board of Supervisors back to order. We're now on item number 30. This is a possible action to discuss or approve the bills and requests for payments by the city manager for the period April 9th through May 6th. Any members of the board want to question or comments about anything that's been done? Public, any comments? Seeing none, we'll take a motion.
I move to ratify the approval of bills and other requests for payments by the city manager for the period of April 9th, 2016 through May 6th, 2016.
Motion and a second on the motion. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Okay, well, let's go to 31. Board of Supervisors non-action items. Anything under 31? Any member? Supervisor Bagwell, go.
So I've been watching the issues on the airport authority that are going on, and so just for a question for the DA's office or something maybe to get back to us, is there any issues of if the airport becomes insolvent, is there any responsibility at the Carson City level? So if you could just look into that for me, I'd appreciate that so that we have an understanding of our responsibility.
Just as today we approved the land management and fuel reduction Waste Management has a curbside yard waste recycling program, so hopefully when this contract comes up for renewal, it'll be something we can do for the community to plan ahead. Also today, we talked about Golden Eagle Lane being a private roadway. We have an ongoing problem at Old Clear Creek Road. We have 30-odd homes up there, maybe more, and they're having trouble again with that road. And if it's something that city staff and the mayor would like to sit down, I can arrange a meeting with these property owners up there. They're having difficult times up there with the street. And, you know, going back in history, no one will take responsibility for the street resurfacing and maintenance and care of it. Also, I received an email from NNDA inviting me to a luncheon, and I sent a email to Rob Hooper asking when his contract is up, and he said that he has no contract on the books or coming up, and his contract is up in August. And I would like to have NNDA come before the board before his contract is up and give us an update as to what has been accomplished with the funding that we gave him, or that organization, not him, that organization. So for the record, before the end of July, I would like NNDA should come and present to the board all material and subject matter that they have accomplished under the contract that we gave them. Also, there was a it's in today's paper, there was a letter to the editor. I know nothing about it, but I do want to bring it up, that Carson Street is not going to be shut down for the 10 days that was originally planned, as was presented to the board for the resurfacing or re-asphalting of Carson Street. Is supposed to be shut down for 10 days. Now we have elected, or the letter went on to say that the city has elected not to shut it down for 10 days, and this was supposed to save us money and time as long as there's no additional cost or any lapse of time from not shutting it down as we originally intended. I don't have a problem, but I am concerned that we're not going along with how we were presented the budget, which we approved. If someone can get back to me on that, that'd be great. Just to let you know, I'm still working with Lori to bring to the board an agenda item for street maintenance and funding. I would like to know the final costs of the MAC, if we even know that yet. And also, at one time, we had a meeting with city staff about an agreement through Carson City Redevelopment Authority and Carson City, Nevada Consolidated Municipality with the Peddler Auto Group. And I'm trying to find out where we're at with this. Is it coming back to us? The greatest sales revenue we have is from car sales, and this was brought to us. We sat and discussed this, but there has been no follow-up since that meeting, and I'm hoping that someone would get back to us to find out what's going on with this. Also, I would bring up to the mayor's attention that I think all elected officials should be granted a right to have an agenda item every quarter, or 4 agenda items per year, without having a second to represent the constituents in our ward. We should be granted the right to have an agenda item without requiring a second of another board member. I think in all fairness, I think it would be a great legacy for you, Mayor, to grant this to all board members. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Mayor, I can provide a quick update for the Carson Street project. The mayor and I, and I'm sure all the board members, have been walking around talking to business owners. We initially had planned, once we completed all the sidewalk work, that we would then, for a period of about 10 days, we would have closed the entire street and done in one kind of fell swoop, so to speak, repave the entire street. So I think it's important that we minimize the impact on businesses as we continue with the project. So what I've asked Public Works and Q&D to do is to look at an alternative that would not require closing the street. So I haven't seen the letter to the editor. I don't know who wrote it. I don't know if we're actually at that point where we're ready to pull the trigger on that, so to speak. But the initial concept they came back with was, as we complete the 2 or 3 block sections that we're working on. So right now, we're almost complete the section from Washington to William, from going north from Washington to William. We're almost complete with that. If we do go with this program of not closing the whole street, what we'll do is probably then go to the east side of the street, put just the east curb in, so in front of the AMPM, in front of the Hardman House and the Children's Museum, for example. We'll put the curb in, and then we'll keep the street open during business hours, and then at night, we'll close that section of the street, repave it. We should be able to get that done in about a week period. So during business hours, there's going to be no impact at any time. There's not going to be a 10-day period where we're going to close the whole street. So we'll minimize, to the extent that we can, the impact to the businesses in terms of access that many of them have experienced. Unfortunately, there's no good way to do it. This is one of those circumstances where you don't have a clean shirt to put on, and we're trying to find the best solution and one that'll minimize the impact. I think most of the business owners that I've talked to have thought that was a good plan, that the street would not be closed. So again, we'll kind of do it as we go down, section by section. I hope that answered your question.
I greatly appreciate the response, and as long as it doesn't incur any additional costs to the city, I don't care which way they do it.
It will not.
Right. I would ask this board to look at the completion of Carson Street. We're spending millions of dollars on this, and out of the businesses that are down there, there's roughly 45 businesses. Out of that, there's roughly 3 to 5, depending on how you label them, retail businesses. I think what we need to do is get involved in how we can bring more retail to the downtown corridor, into vacant buildings, or work with property owners who are leasing now to non-retail businesses to see if they would reconsider, and maybe through redevelopment get grant money to allow them to adapt their building so that retail could move into there. Because right now, as I said, we don't have the retail downtown that would be helpful if we wanted to have a walkable downtown, right? As I said, it depends on how you look at the businesses there and how you want to label the businesses. There are 3 to 5, in my opinion, retail businesses there, and we need to improve on that. So hopefully that's something this board or the city staff would look at as to how we can improve and bring retail to the downtown corridor. Just a thought.
And just 2 notes, meetings between the homeowners up on Clear Creek Road and staff and myself are ongoing, and I did confirm with NNDA that they are anticipating bringing a final report back to the board.
Lastly, I think that I know it's come to the mayor's attention and my attention that pet owners aren't actually being very cognizant of picking up after their pets. I don't know if we should agendize some health discussion with regards to that and the importance of doing so, but it's something that I think should be brought forward, raising awareness.
Sure, and I appreciate the heads up on that. We're looking at the feasibility of potentially, at least along the blue line, which is where I think the main complaints were, of putting in some type of a, some trails have the doggy bag stations, and we're going to try and get that in on the blue line, and then probably expand it.
Anybody else?
Yeah. If there is ongoing conversation with staff and with property owners up on Old Clear Creek Road, I think this should have been brought to our attention by our monthly updates or weekly updates from staff, and I think it should be given the opportunity, should any other board member wish to participate in discussions similar to this, today, tomorrow, that we should be given the opportunity to participate in this type of discussions, because it could be the ward you're representing, it could be where you live, and to not bring this to the board's attention, that something like this is an ongoing discussion, I think, again, open and transparent. Where does it begin? Where does it end? I don't know, but I think this is something that should be shared.
Anybody else? Just a couple concluding comments. First, the city manager and I were walking downtown yesterday, and speaking in the retail area, talked to a gentleman who owns the building right in the middle of the block where Mom and Pop's is and Coldwell Banker is on north, and that's an 1864 building that they're planning on, it's in the process of being renovated right now. I can't remember the name of the business, but it's going to be an antique boutique store. So it's happening, and that person is also, aware of what Supervisor Shook just said. Retail is, foot traffic, getting people together is important downtown. And the last thing I'll just comment on is that I follow the contract that we have with the city manager that all five of us voted on in terms of scheduling agenda items. That's what I do. So, okay. Anything else? No, we're done. We're done.
We're not. I have my light on.
Go.
I don't care what his contract says. You have the ability to grant the right, or we'll bring back his contract, to grant the right to board members to have an agenda item. Just because it's written in his contract does not mean we cannot bring this back, and you can grant to board members the ability to serve those who are elected to serve. Now, if it's in his contract, possibly, if you want to follow the letter of the law, that's great, but you have the ability to change the letter of the law.
I'll just say, I wish I did in some times, but other times I wish I didn't. So, okay. All right, anything else? Are we ready to adjourn then? All right, unless there's an objection, we're adjourned.